Hello and a very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
A survivor of the Suffolk Strangler tells Sky News how she narrowly escaped the serial killer as he attempted to abduct her.
Sir Keir Starmer branded weak for blaming Peter Mandelson's lying for the crisis that now engulfs his premiership, as a senior Labour figure warns that this saga could bring the PM down.
Statins safer than advertised. The study finds that millions more people could take them to reduce cholesterol without suffering side effects.
Also ahead, as the Winter Olympics gets underway, there are allegations of doping and hacking. We're going to speak to the curling coach, Michael Goodfellow.
Plus, Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights gets the Hollywood treatment. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. A woman stalked by the Suffolk Strangler the night before he abducted and murdered Vicky Hall in 1999 says she knew her life was in danger. Emily Doherty has spoken exclusively to Sky News about how she managed to escape from Steve Wright and raise the alarm.
Yeah, Wright, who is serving a whole life term for the murders of 5 women, will be sentenced at the Old Bailey for Vicky's murder and Emily's attempted kidnap. Our correspondent Emma Birchley is our top story.
I bricked it. I pegged it. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger.
Emily Doherty has never spoken about the night she was almost abducted by a man who would become a serial killer, and the police, she said, didn't take her seriously. But the very next day, 17-year-old Victoria Hall was kidnapped just a couple of miles along the road and her body then dumped in a ditch. That man's name was Steve Wright, now known as one of the country's most notorious serial killers, nicknamed the Suffolk Strangler.
I thought that must be him. It can't be a coincidence. The next night, someone else.
It was the early hours of September the 18th, 1999. Emily was walking home from a club with her husband and another couple, but the 2 women ended up way ahead. Her friend said she had to go, and Emily was left alone.
I remember the first instance I saw him. The door was open. The engine was running and he was standing by the car. He saw me and I saw him.
She ran.
I jumped over a wall and knocked on someone's door and said, "Let me in." But no one answered.
Petrified, Emily kept running and got down on all fours to peer around the corner to see if he'd gone.
Suddenly, he was literally right there. He stepped right into me. He said, "All right," in a low, sleazy way. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger. I just knew. The adrenaline kicked in.
She sprinted away, and this time a couple did answer the door and called 999, but she says she didn't get the response she expected.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all.
She says she gave them at least some of the number plate and offered to give a statement later the same day.
They said that won't be necessary. Forget about it. I really felt like they didn't take me seriously at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
The next day, Emily left to go travelling in India, but when she rang home, there was a message asking her to call the police urgently. The manhunt was already underway for Vicky Hall's killer, her body having been found 25 miles away. 5 days after disappearing from the same club in Felixstowe that Emily had been at the night before. Emily did give a statement over the phone from the Himalayas.
That was the last I ever heard about it.
In 2006, 7 years later, that same killer, still walking the streets, would murder 5 sex workers he'd picked up in Ipswich's red light district. Their bodies were found in rural locations, just like Vicky's had been. Steve Wright, who denied the charges, was given a whole life jail term. Vicky's murder had remained a mystery, But 20 years on, the case was reopened and eventually Wright would be charged with killing her too. At the start of his trial at the Old Bailey, he finally changed his plea to guilty, admitting murdering Vicky and attempting to abduct Emily.
You can't help thinking, if they had taken me seriously, Vicky would have survived. But certainly if they had found him sooner, the 5 other women might still be here.
Extraordinary reporting from Emma Birchie. We're going to actually speak to Emma in the 9 o'clock hour, just after 9 a.m. this morning, for her sense of that reporting and how she was able to speak to this individual who may well have had a very lucky escape.
Indeed, and we're going to get a reaction to that interview as well a little bit later with Harriet Wistridge, who's from the Centre for Women's Justice. So more on this coming up later.
Yeah. Now, the Prime Minister is fighting for his political life. So Keir Starmer has apologised for making Peter Mandelson the ambassador to the United States, despite knowing about his relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. But his apology has done little to silence his critics, who see the appointment as an unforgivable lapse of judgment. Yeah, the mounting anger is perhaps strongest from those within his own party. Former Deputy Labour leader Harriet Harman told Sky News he risks being toppled by the fiasco unless he takes action. So backbenchers are calling as well for either his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, to be sacked or for Sir Keir himself to step down. So just how much trouble is the Prime Minister in? Here's the take of our political editor, Beth Rigby.
Mandelson knew Epstein, but none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship.
Once the PM's man in Washington, now his gravest threat.
He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew.
Keir Starmer's decision to put Mandelson back into his government has left the PM fighting for his own political life.
No one is above accountability.
The gravity of Starmer's predicament made plain as he came to Hastings to deliver an apology to Epstein's victims.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again.
His simmering fury barely below the surface. He knows Mandelson might prove a wrong he cannot right. Prime Minister, we can all hear your anger, your regret, and most importantly, your apology to victims. But look, whatever he said or didn't say, it has proved a catastrophic error of your judgment to put him back into your government. Some of your MPs believe you must take responsibility for this in order to restore trust in politics. And some are saying publicly now that you should stand down because your positions become untenable. Why are they wrong?
Well, Beth, as I've said a number of times, I regret the decision to appoint Mandelson as ambassador. He was asked questions about the nature and extent of his relationship with Epstein, and he told lies.
And Starmer's message to his MPs who think he can't go on?
I understand their anger and frustration. They are angry about his association with Epstein, as am I. We must remain focused on what we were elected into government to do, which is to change this country for the better for millions of people.
Opponents trying to use the moment to force change at the top of number 10.
It is now up to Labour MPs to do the right thing. I know there are many of them who are horrified by what has happened. They might now expect the Prime Minister to take responsibility, but we know he won't. He will have to be dragged out of number 10. If they want the change they know the country needs, let's talk seriously about a vote of no confidence to force the moment.
Even allies asking if time is up.
But it will bring him down unless he takes the action which is really necessary for him to take, and that's this. He's got to stop blaming Mandelson and saying, he lied to me. Peter Mandelson was called the Prince of Darkness. It's not a secret that he was a bad person. Why on earth did Peter Mandelson even get in the room to be considered for this ambassadorship?
That is a question many of his MPs are asking. The mood in the party is mutinous. One minister told me they did not think he could survive, saying the party is simply too upset. Another, when I asked about a possible challenge, simply replied, temperatures are running high. Starmer is clearly fighting for his political survival. The passion and the fury today was palpable. But for all of that, there is a terminal gloom descending on his premiership, that from this crisis, there is simply no way back. But as for what comes next for the Labour Party, that's unclear. All the conditions are there for a challenge to his premiership, but for now, his cabinet choose to sit on their hands. The Prime Minister will hope his apology was heard not just by his MPs, but people across the country, and that it has bought him some time. But he knows too that his future is far from certain, and it's beyond his control. Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Well, let's bring in our political correspondent, Amanda Acas, and say very good morning to her.
Morning,
Hi there, Amanda.
you.
So, with the likes of Harriet Harman weighing in, just how much pressure would you say Keir Starmer is under now?
Well, I think Harriet Harman, obviously a Labour peer and a former deputy leader of the party, she's a very big name. And I think her analysis of the situation, effectively saying you shouldn't be sounding angry about Mandelson and claiming that the whole problem is about him lying to you. The issue is about your judgment, effectively, is what she's saying. And that saying that he believed the lies suggests that he's naive and gullible. I mean, it's quite an extraordinary criticism to hear from her, such a grandee in the party, and effectively saying he needs to go ahead and get his house in order and reset number 10. And I think what she's saying there, as we've heard from many Labour MPs I've been speaking to over the past few days, certainly are trying to pin the blame on Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, someone who is a Mandelson protege, who's seen as being someone who really pushed his appointment as US ambassador, and potentially he could be a kind of fall guy for this decision. Number 10 have been quite clear, ministers we've spoken to, that they have full confidence in Morgan McSweeney. He's the architect of their last general election victory, and I think there's always a risk if you sort of make someone a scapegoat, an advisor in this sense, that actually it was still Starmer that took that decision. He was the Prime Minister. In terms of the pressure he's under, I mean, MPs are going back to their constituencies over the weekend. Perhaps that will slightly dial the temperature down, but equally they go back home and all their constituents knocking on doors are outraged by this. We know it's got real cut-through. Could have the opposite effect. I think really the real risk is more big names come out and call for him to go. At the moment, there are a handful of MPs publicly saying they've lost. No ministers, and they're kind of the usual suspects in terms of current MPs, the left-wingers who aren't exactly Starmer's greatest fans anyway. Behind the scenes, of course, there's a lot of anger, but I think it would need to be some ministerial resignations or some, big names that's kind of coalescing around a leadership challenger, I think.
OK. Talk to us about the process from here. We had the debate earlier in the week, of course. You've talked to us about the political pressure. What are the steps now for us to sort of get through this crisis for the Prime Minister?
Yes, so after that day in Parliament where the government was trying to restrict the number of documents relating to the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador, and then all of the kind of correspondence between him, ministers, civil servants, fads, since he was ambassador. So there's a huge volume of information, of
every
data.
message, right?
I mean, absolutely. It's like the COVID inquiry, when we saw all those long WhatsApps. I mean, it's going to take a long time for them to go through them, because essentially after the kind of rebellion from backbench MPs who were saying there was a bit of a cover-up because the government wanted to restrict the number of those documents released, saying they were concerned about security or international diplomacy grounds, which I think is probably them talking about Donald Trump behind his back, obviously, as he was the ambassador. But they've agreed now that anything they want to redact will have to go to this parliamentary committee. The Metropolitan Police are also involved because they're carrying out a criminal investigation. They've said there are some documents they don't want to be released until they've done that. They don't want to prejudice what happens there. So it's all quite unclear as to how long this is going to take. We understand from number 10, they're saying, well, we are talking to this committee of MPs and the Met. We're going to set out a timeline of exactly how this is all going to happen. But we understand that's not going to be before next week. Clearly, for number 10, they want this to happen as soon as possible, because Starmer's saying, when you see all all this documentation, you'll understand why I believe what Mandelson had to say. And so that's kind of giving him a bit of breathing space, but also kind of a space for all this speculation to grow. I mean, if truly he is vindicated by it, but I think that's probably quite unlikely given the level of frustration and also the sense that a lot of this was out there in the public domain already. So it goes back to Harriet Harman's point, why was he willing to believe him, really?
And in the meantime, very briefly, they're desperate to try and get the agenda off Peter Mandelson and onto what they say that they're achieving today. They want to talk about migration, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can't blame them for trying to talk about something else. They've got an announcement about illegal migration, and they've totted up all the figures in terms of the number of people who have voluntarily returned home if they're here illegally or been forcibly deported or removed, and that's nearly 60,000 over the 19 months since they came into office, which they're saying is, you know, a big number, and there are some big increases on previously, so 45% increase on the number of people deported, 32% on foreign national offenders being removed, which compared to the same period previously. Equally, when you look at the number of people coming in small boats, 65,000 over that same time. So it's not even as many as have arrived in small boats. And of course, this isn't just about small boats, it's about everyone who's come here illegally. So I always say, well, you're cooking the books a bit here, but still.
Well, we will put some of that to the Home Office Minister, Mike Tapp, who will be joining us, I think, in that very chair in a couple of minutes' time. Amanda, thank you so much for that.
Now, a little bit of positive news this morning for people managing high cholesterol. A landmark study has found that statins, used by millions, of course, are safer than previously thought.
Yeah, it's good when you get these kind of stories. Let's bring in our correspondent, Molly Malone, following all of this for us.
Morning. To bring you the good stuff.
Love it, Molly. Welcome. Good morning to you. So tell us, what's the study found?
Well, statins, as we know, are one of the most commonly prescribed drugs in the UK, used by millions of people to lower bad cholesterol levels, to help prevent heart attacks, strokes, and also cardiovascular disease, which accounts for about a quarter of all deaths in the UK. So used by lots of people, but for a long time the drug has come with kind of quite severe warnings about possible side effects. But what this now major new study published in The Lancet has found is that actually they're much safer to take than previously thought. It was a trial of 120,000 people, and basically what it did is compared using statins versus a placebo or sort of dummy drug, and the patients in the trial didn't know which one they were taking, and it found essentially that statins aren't actually the cause of the majority of the possible side effects, so suggesting that there's no increased risk for things like memory loss, depression, sleep problems, and weight gain, and all of those are listed as some of the more serious side effects when you take statins. Now, the people in the trial were followed for 4.5 years, so a considerable amount of time, and it found that only 4 out of more than 60, about 66 side effects were found to have any association with taking a statin. So the message from these scientists, published in The Lancet, so a significant amount of research, is that statins aren't the cause of the vast majority, and that actually it's their view that the benefits of taking statins actually outweigh the risks.
Really
fantastic, yeah, that'd be great for so many people.
Loads of people taking them.
About 8 million people, so
yeah. Okay, really good news. Appreciate that, Molly. Thank you very much. Now, we're now at the end, sort of what's been quite the febrile week for the government, with the scandal overshadowing Keir Starmer's premiership involving Peter Mandelson. Let's get the thoughts now of Home Office Minister Mike Tapp, who joins us now live. Mr. Tapp, good morning to you. Thanks very much for being with us. I want to talk first of all about immigration, because you're announcing some numbers today.
Yes, we are, yes.
Nearly 60,000 people have been returned, foreign offenders as well. But in the time that's happened, some 65,000 have arrived in small boats. So although you've sent a large number back, you're not really touching the signs of getting down the numbers of illegal migrants, are you?
Well, we said we'd go harder and faster when we came into government, and the Home Secretary's been really clear on that. That's why we've deported and removed nearly 60,000. Now, that's an increase of over 30% on the previous government. It takes time, of course, to process, but we're going hard on this. We've said that we'll ramp this up, and we absolutely will. If you're here illegally, then we will do our best to deport and remove you, and that's been evidenced by this release of data today. We've also got to bear in mind that there's been an increase of over 30% of foreign national offender removals, which is really important for public safety. Of course, we'll continue to ramp that up. And look, if countries aren't playing by the rules and they're refusing to take people back, we will impose visa restrictions. We've started doing that, and that's started working, which is going to lead to an additional 3,000 removals, and we won't stop.
OK. Thank you very much for that. I want to play for you a bit of tape of Baroness Harman speaking about the situation with Mandelson. Let's just play the tape and then we'll talk off the back.
He's got to stop blaming Mandelson and saying he lied to me, because actually he should never have been considering him in the first place. And to say he lied to me makes it look weak and naive and gullible.
Weak, naive and gullible. That's not the way to describe a Prime Minister that can lead this country anywhere, is it?
Well, I've got a lot of respect for Harriet. At the same time, I've got a lot of respect for Keir Starmer. And I've got to know him over the years through campaigning and as Prime Minister and now, obviously, as a Minister. He's a good man. And he genuinely means it when he says that he wants to make a difference and turn the country round from the mess we inherited. And that, by the way, includes lots of action to ensure that we are bringing down violence against women and girls. I know that he's thoroughly upset and angry at being lied to by Peter Mandelson. He's apologised. He said that he absolutely regrets the appointment and being lied to, and he's apologised to the victims. And look, I'm here today as a government minister, and I, of course, want to extend my apology on that front too. I've worked for the National Crime Agency in the past. I've arrested paedophiles. I've searched the room of a grooming victim looking for evidence of grooming. That stays with me, and it means a hell of a lot to me that this has happened. So I think the apology is really important. He said he's been lied to. I believe that. I trust Keir Starmer, and he's going to ensure that all of the documents are released, and the vast majority of that doesn't concern national security, the public will see to, and they can, of course, make their own judgment.
Yep. His apology has been accepted by some within your party. You know that there are some who don't accept it at this stage. It's been accepted as well by some of the victims who welcomed the apology. You say he's a good man, but at this point, with this kind of distraction, I mean, the King is being heckled over this stuff. Is he not becoming a drag on your party and therefore a drag on this country that he's continuing to cling on when it would seem for many people as if they want him to resign?
Well, Keir Starmer turned the Labour Party around from a massive defeat in 2019 to a extremely convincing majority at the last election.
But he can't control his backbench at the moment, can he?
We've seen his work and the government's work starting to take effect. Look, it takes time for when we legislate for it to come into action, around 10 months to go through Parliament and the Lords to then have an impact on people. We're starting to see that work now. You know, interest rates coming down 6 times has a direct impact on people's mortgages and rents. The cost of living is stabilising. We're starting to turn the corner. So, look, I believe that if we stick with Keir Starmer, which we will, then that corner will turn faster and people will start to feel it. But look, I have to say, I completely understand the anger, the distress at what's happened with Peter Mandelson's appointment. I completely agree with that.
Well, therefore,
that's why I'm really pleased to see this genuine apology from Keir Starmer.
And as I say, I think it's been accepted. It was a genuine apology, but still there is a question about his judgment, isn't there? He was lied to. Baroness Harman said it was naive, he looks gullible. I mean, that's true, he does. I mean, he was lied to, but Keir Starmer is a senior prosecutor, he's a KC. He surely would be able to see through someone's lies. Why didn't he look deeper?
Do you know, QC lawyers are there to probe and ask questions to get to the truth. He wasn't the vetting officer here. But we do know...
back to the process.
We do know... It's not process. We do know that there were lies told during that vetting procedure. Now, that's not me putting any blame on anybody else. The government ultimately oversees this and makes the decision, and that's why the apology is really important. And when we see the information laid out for the public, of course, we have to act on that and ensure that nothing like this can ever happen again.
The warnings were there that he was the wrong person to be appointed, though. The Financial Times had reporting back in 2023. Channel 4 had reporting about him as well and his closeness. We knew about his closeness. The Prime Minister has acknowledged that. Lord Glassman wrote to Number 10 back in 2025 saying he was the wrong man to be appointed. All of these warning signs were ignored. So then it comes down to a question as to why. Why was it so important to appoint this man to that post?
And the Prime Minister has... Look, it's public knowledge, isn't it, that there was, of course, a relationship between Peter Mandelson and that vile paedophile in the United States.
And you still appointed him?
But what we've got to bear in mind is that the apology Keir Starmer has given is that he was clearly lied to during that vetting process. And I trust that. I trust the Prime Minister. Let's see what comes out from the documents. I think transparency is vital in the government, and that's what we're getting from this government. And you've got to also bear in mind, we've acted, or Keir Starmer has acted quickly on this, in firing him, on removing him from the Privy Council. He's working to remove his title, and also there's a Met Police investigation ongoing at the moment. So a lot of action has been taken. For me, the sign of good leadership and of good government isn't necessarily whether you make mistakes, because that happens, but it's about whether you own them and you act on them.
And he has.
And we clearly
but we still haven't got to the point as to why, with all of these red flags about this man, this government was so keen to appoint him. Is it because he's so close with Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff? Is it because he was constantly in Number 10, helping with reshuffles? He was helping pick candidates. He just has some kind of hold over the Labour Party, and I want to try and understand from you why that is.
Well, Peter Mandelson has been a big figure in politics for decades, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he lost a couple of jobs because of his bad judgment, and yet you guys gave him another plum job when you knew that there were problems with him.
He's tricked, he's lied, he's weaseled. That was believed by the vetting process, and it's really important that these documents are released so we make sure it never, ever happens again, because we deserve better than that.
Mike Tapp, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
All right. Well, look, the process continues. As Mike Tapp says, there are a number of investigations ongoing. We're still not getting closer, though, to really understanding the proper elements as to why this decision was fully made. And there is still, I think, despite the defences there from Mike Tapp, that Sir Keir Starmer is a good man, about the Prime Minister's judgment in allowing this appointment to go forward.
Absolutely. Those questions, certainly for the time being, do continue, and there's a certain amount of anger on the backbenches about it. So we'll probably hear a great deal more over the next few days.
We definitely will. Right. Well, look, stay with us here on Mornings. We're going to be talking Winter Olympics pretty soon as the opening ceremony of those games gets underway.
Yeah, some extraordinary stories. Stay tuned.
You want to hear about these? Now, an opening ceremony with performances from Mariah Carey, no less, and Andrea Bocelli will signal the start of this year's Winter Olympics. Athletes will be centre stage for the next 2 weeks, but there are some controversies attached to the Games, from crotch enhancements, there you go.
Who knew?
To banned helmets. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris reports.
The Olympics will officially begin here at the San Siro, with Mariah Carey and Andrea Bocelli performing. But before the ceremony, we've already had our fill of controversies. Crotch enhancements, banned helmets, qualifying manipulation claims and hacking. So why might ski jumpers be injecting an acid serum into their genitalia to artificially increase the size? Well, apparently to enlarge their skin suit surface area, to extend ski jumpers' flight, to glide more. Rules were tightened after the Norwegian team was caught cheating by manipulating the crotch area in their uniforms. Nothing has been substantiated on these acid claims, but it was brought up here in Milan in question to the World Anti-Doping Agency.
I'm not aware of the details of ski jumping and how this can improve, but you know, if anything was to come to the surface, we would look at anything if, you know, it is actually doping related. We don't do other means of enhancing performance, but you know, our list committee would certainly look into whether this would fall in this category.
Let's look at another controversy. On the eve of the opening ceremony, Team GB were in a hearing in the World Sport Court, CAS, after their new helmets were found to have breached the competition rules. So they've been appealing to allow gold medal contender Matt Weston to be able to wear a new aerodynamic helmet. Lawyers are now as busy as athletes in sport. Canada was furious after skeleton racer Katie Eulander fell just short of qualifying for a 6th Olympics. That's because fewer qualification ranking points became available after rivals pulled 4 sliders from a race last month. The sport's governing body looked into it all. They did say it looked like manipulation, but found no rules had been broken.
Did help look for an additional spot. Those efforts were unsuccessful, and we have to respect the process.
Now, what about those hacking claims? The Italian government is accusing Russians of hacking into systems linked to these Olympics, particularly hotels in the resort of Cortina, which is being used for skiing and other events about 4 hours from here.
Now to South Sudan now, and there are fears that government infighting could lead to a civil war in the world's youngest nation. Almost 3/4 of the population are in need of humanitarian assistance, and despite its own problems, it's welcoming increasing numbers of Sudanese refugees.
Yeah, well, let's go now to South Sudan to rank and speak to the Chief Executive of World Vision UK, Fola Komalafe. Fola, thanks very much for being with us, and we appreciate you making the time. What was a really busy period for your organisation. Let's just start with you telling us about the situation that you find yourself working in and the need of the people in South Sudan at the moment.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm currently in Rank, which is one of the border counties that is the border with Sudan. And here in Rank, what we have millions of Sudanese either returning back to South Sudan or those who are refugees coming back in. So we've welcomed in South Sudan 1.3 million since the war began, and 80% of them are in a place called Rank Transit Center. If you were to go there this morning, you would see wooden poles and temporary shelters made out of tarpaulin. You'd see children running around. You'd see toilets and facilities there that are under huge pressure, bearing in mind that South Sudan already has 70% of its population needing humanitarian aid. So it's in a dire situation. It keeps welcoming refugees from Sudan, about 3,000 coming every month. 80% of those are coming are women and children. And I've spoken to quite a number of them over these last 3 days, and they are in really desperate situations for food. They're in desperate situations in terms of acute malnutrition, which at the moment is about 19% of children under 5. So there's a huge risk here in terms of starvation and just their development, their growth, and their long-term welfare.
I mean, that is an extraordinary statistic, Fola. 70% of the population in need of humanitarian assistance. And as you were saying, a huge number of the people coming into the country are women. Tell us why they're likely to be travelling on their own, and have they been subjected to violence as well as the need for humanitarian help?
Yeah. So I spoke to a number of them, and most of them have lost their husbands, either during the conflict or due to illness, or some just don't know where they are, because you can imagine that when the conflict struck, everybody ran. So a lot of them have come with nothing but their children. They are in desperate situations when they get in here. And most of the women talked about gender-based violence. So either on their journeys in here, and sometimes also, unfortunately, in the transit center. There's a particular woman that talked about having experienced something allegedly during one of her bath runs, because the bathing provision is quite a distance from where the shelter is. But they're scared. They're scared. There's a lot of underreporting. They're scared about the stigma. They're scared about retaliation. They're scared about reporting what is happening. So a lot of them talk about having to make sure that they do all their activities before nighttime, just to keep themselves safe. So World Vision has a health center in the transit, in this transit place. And so far, they've seen 34 accounts of gender-based violence in the last 12 months. And we still believe that that is underreported.
Fola, we don't have loads of time left, but it's really important that we keep the situation in Sudan in their headlines, as I'm sure you appreciate. It perhaps gets overlooked, sadly, at many points. So a couple of questions. What are you guys doing? What is being done by this government and other governments to make sure that there is enough aid and assistance for the millions that need it? And talk to us about this statistic as well that I've seen here, that some cholera is being detected in some 17 of 18 states. Is there a threat now that there's going to be a cholera outbreak, and what danger will that bring?
I think cholera, there was a big cholera outbreak. I was at the border yesterday, and some of the feedback I got from the teams there, especially those who are doing vaccination, is that cholera outbreak has subsided significantly. However, the threat that we have is the impact of the funding cuts, because the funding cuts means that things like water treatment, it means things like health center, most of them will be closing down in the month of March. And so people then go to the Nile, the River Nile, to get water, which is not the best place to get it. So we could see another upsurge of the outbreak of diseases like cholera. In terms of what we are doing, we have health centers. We have 10 health center facilities across the area, and they work with mothers and babies. They provide maternal, postnatal, antenatal. They also are now open 24/7 for emergency situations. And there are drugs that are coming in, although in limited quantity. So World Vision is working with other NGO partners around trying to make the best of a really bad situation. But the impact of the funding cuts will hit, and what is a dire situation will even become even worse for a lot of these people. And one of the midwives I spoke to yesterday actually talked about her fears about increased mortality rates with children and with women.
If you can, Fola.
I was just going to say that you asked me the question about the government. I think that the government here in REC provides good security. I know that there are concerns about security in other parts, but here in REC, security is good for aid workers. However, the international community has to think and come more together to talk about strategically around peace and how we sustain peace in a long-term basis, and how we transition some of these services into a stable environment.
Absolutely. Important final point to make there. Fola Komolafe from World Vision, thank you for your time. I wish you and your team all the very best in your necessary work. Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a highlight there, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Fola.
Just millions and millions being affected by that, and it's something that we don't talk about nearly enough and raise awareness, so it's really important to speak to Fola there.
Absolutely. Let's turn our attention back here, though, now, because there are calls for an overhaul of the UK's student loan system in response to an outcry at graduates' rising debt levels. We can bring in Amira Campbell now, who's president of the National Union of Students. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Amira.
Thank you for having me.
Real concerns, haven't you, about the student loan system? What is the basic problem with it as far as you're concerned?
So the conversation that's been taken up, or that we've been talking about particularly recently, is specifically around Plan 2 loans, which is the ones for students that studied in England between 2012 and 2023, and then for current students.
And there's a lot of them,
Wales.
5.8 million, I think.
Yes,
people. Yeah.
a lot of students are affected, and a lot of graduates, obviously, by these loans. And what's particularly happened is that in the autumn budget, the Chancellor announced that she would be freezing the repayment thresholds for 3 years on that loan, effectively meaning that loads of those students and graduates would be paying hundreds more than what they'd originally signed onto. And so this has caused a lot of outcry among a lot of graduates, myself being on a Plan 2 loan affected by this. And so the number one thing that people want to see happen, that I want to see happen, is a reversal of that decision. Because it goes completely against what that loan was supposed to do.
I mean, this is that fiscal drag thing that we hear about around budgets and spring statements all the time, where more people, because of the freezing of the thresholds, are dragged into paying tax. I think we've got the chart that can kind of show the huge increase. Where can we put it? There it is, behind me there. So look, so what in the... Thank you. Moving on very quickly. So we can see that there, this is the one that I wanted you to bring up. So the red bar, that is the increase, right? And the blue is where, and that's the interest that you're paying extra. So you can see the blue is the original loan repayment, and the red bar is the increase in terms of interest rate. So what's happening now is that some students are actually finding that after graduating and after starting to pay back their loan, they're paying back more than they had when they finished.
Yeah, what's really concerning is because there's almost this chase happening for a lot of graduates where they keep paying in, but the interest is going up more than the amount that they're able to actually pay in according to the amount of money that they earn, because it's a calculation based off of the threshold about their income above that. But I think what's really, really challenging is there is already so much wrong with the student loan system, full stop. I mean, we're talking about people who, when they were studying, were already facing real financial challenges. Maintenance loans were not enough. Their parental income thresholds hadn't moved for almost 2 decades. So many of them weren't able to access the support from their parents, or their parents were struggling to offer them that support. Then they've graduated, they're young professionals just starting off their careers, and they're finding that as soon as they go into their first sort of job, as soon as they've stepped their foot into the working world, they're already having to pay back this loan at incredible sums, and they're not sure they're ever going to be able to pay it off.
And your payments go up the more you earn, don't they? I noticed that you need to be earning about £66,000 before you start tackling the actual debt, not just the interest. Is that right? Does that figure sound right to you?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we should say what the government says about this.
Yes,
they say that the student loan scheme is fair and reasonable. They say it's designed to maintain... They've got to think about the universities, sustainable universities, but they also want to make sure that kids from poorer backgrounds have access to education. So they say this is the best system.
Can I just add to that as well? Because in the papers over the weekend, the Chancellor also mentioned the NHS getting funding from this. I'm glad you've laughed at that, because the first that we'd heard about the NHS getting some funding from this. What do you make of that as an argument?
I mean, fundamentally, young people, students, all of us are people that care deeply about the NHS. So many of these students affected by this are people that are training to be doctors and nurses themselves. So I think the Chancellor needs to stop playing politics with students and graduates on this particular topic. But to go back to what you were saying, what is really concerning is that so many of these people affected by this are hard-working young professionals, you know, and we've got a cropped middle class that are really being impacted by this. This isn't impacting the wealthiest who are able to pay off it straight away, who are able to pay up their tuition fee up front. This is affecting those who are working really hard, particularly those from poorer backgrounds, who then manage to get into well-paying jobs or manage to really get themselves on a good footing as young professionals, and then find that they end up paying even more than the wealthiest graduates.
Well, look, the call is for them to reverse it. I'm sure it's being heard because you're having those conversations. We'll see whether or not government listens.
Thanks for coming in.
Mira, thank you very much.
And thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. All right. Let's talk about some sport, because
Yeah,
Jackie has
Jackie's
joined us.
here.
Hello, Jackie.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
Some fun topics in the sport this morning. I'm sure
Aren't
you've
there?
been reading all about it.
What are you mentioning?
I'll tell you in a minute. We're also going. Did you see the Six Nations last night? Starting on Thursday for the first time in modern times, and there were adverts during the match as well. We'll be looking at the Six Nations and showing you a little bit of action from that, and that's all to come after the break.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest and Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island.
The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out.
The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here. In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
So Jackie is here with so much sport to look back on and to look forward to with the Winter Olympics.
Yes, now, I know this was a topic of conversation last night, but I mean, it's extraordinary that we're actually even having a conversation about crotches and ski jumping.
Love it.
Who knew that would ever be in my sports bulletin? But the ski jumpers have caused a real furore at the Winter Olympics. They haven't even started. They're starting tonight, as we've been talking about. But the chiefs from WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, were facing questions yesterday about reports in a German newspaper in January that a German newspaper built that ski jumpers, and it was very anonymous and it was all very vague, were using hyaluronic acid to enhance their penises so that when they were measured for their skin suits, there would be more material given to the skin suit, and the wider the surface area, the bigger the surface area. Apparently, when you're jumping, you can fly further. It's a bit like a sort of
I've got flying squirrel.
Kite or a squirrel.
Yeah, that's how I've been describing it.
If you have more skin suit, it's an advantage. Nobody has been caught. Nobody has been accused in the Olympic Village. And hyaluronic acid is not a banned substance, but it's just the spirit of it. And when they're measured for their suits, apparently it's skin-tight underwear they have to wear, and it's all done in a very high-tech way. And there have been issues of teams overstitching the seams to allow. I mean, that has happened.
That was the Norwegians, was it?
It was the Norwegians, yeah.
Okay.
So it is a thing.
Can I just say, you dealt with that very delicately.
So elegantly,
professionally.
brilliantly.
It was funny, yesterday on Sports News, they didn't even say the word.
What, skin suit?
No. Anyway, right, let's move on. Curling has already started. The mixed curling with Bruce Mowat, who's hot favourite to win the curling gold, is also one of the favourites with Jen Dodds. There she is, to win gold in the mixed curling. It's a very popular event. It's already started. They've got multiple rounds to do in a round-robin event, but they've had 3 matches very intensively so far, and they have won 3 matches, Norway, Estonia and the Czech Republic. Today, they will be playing Sweden, which you'd think will be quite a tough match. But we're going to be talking to Bruce Mowat's coach very shortly, because curling, well, we get excited every 4 years, don't we?
Yeah,
indeed.
Every 4 years. I don't know if you watched did you watch the rugby last night? It was weird seeing it on a Thursday, the start of the Six Nations, because that's just not happened before, certainly in modern times. But it was France-Ireland, a massive match to begin with. Between them, they've won the last 4 Six Nations. This time, I think there were not high expectations on Ireland. There's been lots of changes, whether it's retirements or injuries, not replacing like for like. Anyway, France absolutely demolished Ireland last night. It was an embarrassing, really, 36-14 defeat. Let's have a look at a couple of the tries, because Louis Barré was the star man, 22-year-old, opening the scoring for France on 12 minutes with a piece of individual brilliance. And then he followed that up with another try on 47 minutes. France raced into a 29-0 lead, totally dominating the first 50 minutes. There was an Ireland fight-back of sorts in the second half with 2 tries of their own, but far too many missed tackles for it to be very competitive. And you just thought it's going to be a long tournament for the Irish, and with really tough matches to come. But France are the team to beat. It seems they were really, really good last night, and they took their foot off the gas as well.
Wow.
So that was even more scary.
Yeah, what they could be capable
of. What they could be capable of. Also, the big story yesterday, very, very bad news for Leicester. They were expecting a points deduction for breaking financial rules, but it's 6 points. They probably will appeal it. They are now right down near the bottom of the table in 20th. And it looks like almost 10 years after winning the title, amazing scenes when they won the Premier League title. Mm-hmm. No one expected that. Almost 10 years on, they're going to be fighting for their lives in the Championship. I mean, it's extraordinary, the turnaround, and that just goes to show how tough the Championship really is.
And those PSR rules as well. You get those points docked in season, which is quite the thing.
It would have been way worse. At least they know where they are now. Let's go back to the Olympics briefly. Let's bring Olympic silver medalist and current team coach for Scotland curling, Michael Goodfellow. Michael, you're in Stirling, but you are Bruce Mowat's coach, or you were Bruce Mowat's coach. Why aren't you there?
Yes, I'm still Bruce's coach. So I primarily coach his men's team. So he's out playing the mixed doubles just now. So there's a couple other coaches with him, Greg and Clancy, and I'm here with the rest of the team, still training in Stirling just now.
And are you heading out there? Because Bruce, when I was doing my preview report ahead of the Olympics, he is clearly, obviously, one of the standout medal hopes for Team GB. And he said to me, well, it's got to be gold, really, at this point in time, because anything else would be disappointment for me, given how much he's dominated in the last year and a half, yeah?
Yeah, very much so. The guys obviously won silver last time in Beijing. They're current world champions, they're current world number 1. So, yeah, they've very much got gold in their sights, and anything else will be a little bit of a disappointment. So, yeah.
What makes Bruce so good? Because we saw actually pictures of him coaching Princess Catherine and Prince William just a couple of weeks ago, and they look pretty good actually. But what makes Bruce so good at this sport?
It's a combination of a few things. His work ethic. He's a full-time curler just now. Thankfully through the funding of the National Lottery, he's able to train full-time and fully concentrate on it. His demeanour, his calmness under pressure also plays a massive part of it. So there's a combination of a few things that really contribute to him to being the best shot maker in the world.
Well, currently he's with Jen Dalton in the mixed curling. They've won 3 out of 3. They're a good combo. What makes a good combination in the mixed? And do they enjoy having this before the Olympics even starts? Does it kind of get them into the swing of it?
Yeah, like they're a great combination. They've worked together for years, they've known each other for years. I think they curled together at the junior club in Edinburgh. So they just bounce off each other well, they communicate really well and just get the best out of each other. So in terms of playing before the men's and women's event starts, I think it's not an issue at all. If anything, it's a bit of an advantage. The guys played it last year and they went on to win gold and silver, so it's not an issue at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And your predictions for both the men's and women's curling team this time?
That's a good question. I think, yeah, I wouldn't want to jinx it, but yeah, I think the guys will definitely be in with a shout. The girls a little bit more of an outside shot, but it's Olympic Games. You never know what will happen. Is sometimes form goes out the window and just whoever has the best week.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes like 1 centimetre can make all the difference. I mean, it's a ridiculous sport in many ways. Michael Goodfellow, thank you very much. Keep coaching the way you do, because Bruce is doing so well, and his team. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
And that's the jeopardy of winter sports, isn't it? Ice is involved.
Oh
So, you know, just curl it a little bit.
I love the expectation as well, that if they don't, come out with a medal, then that might be a disappointment. It shows you just how high the standard is and how good they are.
Just being realistic, they've really dominated.
They're the
18
ones.
months. Isn't it funny how we love curling? Yes. But only every 4 years.
He does it professionally. I didn't know you could just do curling as a full-time job. Brilliant.
Well done, do you think you take it up?
Maybe, if this doesn't work out. Start pushing some heavy stones.
Give it a whirl.
On that bombshell.
Jackie, thank you. See you next hour. Top stories next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Hello and a very good morning. It's 8 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
The survivor of the Suffolk Strangler tells Sky News how she narrowly escaped the serial killer as he attempted to abduct her.
Sir Keir Starmer branded weak for blaming Peter Mandelson's lies for the crisis that now engulfs his premiership. As a senior Labour figure warns, this saga could bring the PM down.
Statins safer than advertised. A study finds that millions more people could take them to reduce cholesterol without suffering side effects.
And also ahead is lights, camera, action as the Winter Olympics gets underway. But there are already some interesting scandals engulfing the Games, with talk of banned helmets as well as crotch enhancements.
Indeed. Plus, Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights gets the Hollywood treatment.
A woman stalked by the Suffolk Strangler the night before he abducted and then murdered Vicky Hall back in 1999 says she knew her life was in danger. Emily Doherty has spoken for the first time to Sky News about how she managed to escape from Steve Wright and raise the alarm. Now, Wright is serving a whole life term for the murders of 5 women, will be sentenced at the Old Bailey today for Vicky's murder and Emily's attempted kidnap. Emma Birchley reports.
I bricked it, I pegged it. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger.
Emily Doherty has never spoken about the night she was almost abducted by a man who would become a serial killer, and the police, she said, didn't take her seriously. But the very next day, 17-year-old Victoria Hall was kidnapped just a couple of miles along the road, and her body then dumped in a ditch. That man's name was Steve Wright, now known as one of the country's most notorious serial killers, nicknamed the Suffolk Strangler.
I thought that must be him. It can't be a coincidence. The next night, someone else.
It was the early hours of September the 18th, 1999. Emily was walking home from a club with her husband and another couple, but the 2 women ended up way ahead. Her friend said she had to go, and Emily was left alone.
I remember the first instance I saw him. The door was open, the engine was running, and he was standing by the car. He saw me, and I saw him.
She ran.
I jumped over a wall and knocked on someone's door and said, "Let me in." But no one answered.
Petrified, Emily kept running and got down on all fours to peer around the corner to see if he'd gone.
Suddenly, he was literally right there. He stepped right into me. He said, "All right," in a low, sleazy way. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger. I just knew. The adrenaline kicked in.
She sprinted away, and this time a couple did answer the door and called 999, but she says she didn't get the response she expected.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all.
She says she gave them at least some of the number plate and offered to give a statement later the same day.
They said that won't be necessary. Forget about it. I really felt like they didn't take me seriously at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
The next day, Emily left to go travelling in India, but when she rang home, there was a message asking her to call the police urgently. The manhunt was already underway for Vicky Hall's killer, her body having been found 25 miles away. 5 days after disappearing from the same club in Felixstowe that Emily had been at the night before. Emily did give a statement over the phone from the Himalayas.
That was the last I ever heard about it.
In 2006, 7 years later, that same killer, still walking the streets, would murder 5 sex workers he'd picked up in Ipswich's red light district. Their bodies were found in rural locations, just like Vicky's had been. Steve Wright, who denied the charges, was given a whole life jail term. Vicky's murder had remained a mystery, but 20 years on, the case was reopened And eventually Wright would be charged with killing her too. At the start of his trial at the Old Bailey, he finally changed his plea to guilty, admitting murdering Vicky and attempting to abduct Emily.
You can't help thinking, if they had taken me seriously, Vicky would have survived. But certainly if they had found him sooner, the 5 other women might still be here.
And we are going to be talking to Harriet Wistrich in just a moment. Harriet, very good morning to you. We want to talk about this case in just a moment. We're just going to bring our viewers a little bit of breaking news just before we come to you, if that's okay.
Harriet,
apologies. But we are getting word via the Russian media, which is saying that the Russian Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev is in hospital after being shot in a residential building in Moscow. They are saying an unidentified attacker fired several shots and then fled the scene, and that a criminal case has opened. And they've also got some details. The Russian Investigative Committee has released details about this, talking about how General Alexeyev has been hospitalised.
Yeah, Alexeyev is a senior general within the Russian military. He's a deputy head of the GRU, that's the Russian spy agency. He's also responsible for all Russian Spetsnaz units. They're the Russian special forces, some 20,000 Spetsnaz soldiers. And he's also sanctioned by the UK government. That is because he is suspected of being involved in the poisoning of Sergei Skripal back in Salisbury back in 2019. The UK government sanctioned this individual for that, for the reckless use of a chemical weapon. So this news now that there seems to have been an assassination attempt on him in Moscow will, of course, keep a very close eye on the reporting coming out of Russia as General Vladimir Alexeyev is in hospital after being shot earlier today.
Let's go back then to Harriet Wistrich, founder and director of the Centre for Women's Justice. Harriet Wistrich, apologies for not coming to you immediately there, but we do want to get your reflections on this extraordinary interview that Emily Doherty has given, the first time that she has spoken about her horrific experience when she suffered this attempted kidnap on her by Steve Wright. I wonder what you made of her interview and what she had to say about her experience and about the police's handling of it.
Well, it's awful, really, really awful to hear, because obviously had the police taken her seriously when she initially reported it and not disbelieved her, things may have turned out very, very differently. Whether or not it would ever have stopped the murder of Vicky Hall, certainly there was a good chance that they could have caught this man a lot earlier. Instead, her really significant evidence was dismissed by them. One of the really, really sad aspects of the impact on Emily is the fact that she feels some kind of survivor's guilt, as she describes it, for the police failing to believe her. She should not, of course, be in any way guilty. The main person should be guilty, obviously, is Steve Wright, but the police failures to take this account seriously is also extremely concerning. And we don't know whether there are other victims and how likely there are other victims have not yet been connected with Steve Wright.
Harriet Wistrich, morning to you. Kamali here. Look, what does this example that we're hearing here tell us about the way that the criminal justice system can treat women who come forward? I mean, this individual was not believed. And I imagine that this is not the first time nor the last time that may well happen.
Very sadly not. I mean, the case that it's most reminiscent for me about, because I supported 2 of the victims of the taxi driver John Warboys, who went on to attack well over 100 women, 2 women who had reported him along with a number of others, and were disbelieved by the police. At the time, their accounts that they'd been drugged and raped by a taxi driver just really weren't taken seriously. And as a consequence of that, of course, Warboys was able to continue his reign of terror on so many women over so many years. This case we actually took to the ultimately to the Supreme Court, actually, to establish that there is a duty on the police to conduct an effective investigation, and the police failed in that respect. We know also, the other case, which unfortunately this is very reminiscent of, is the murder of Sarah Everard, and the revelations that came out about her murderer, the police officer Wayne Couzens, who it turns out had committed a number of crimes of a sexual nature prior to that, which were just not, kind of effectively investigated. So I think what this account teaches us is that, you really have to take these accounts seriously, even if they whatever the judgments made, and investigate them, because that is the only hope we have of preventing such horrendous offending. I mean, Steve Wright is now one of the most prolific serial killers in our history, and I fear that there are many other victims, because we know there's been quite a big gap between the murder of Vicky Hall and the Ipswich murders. What was he doing in between? Nothing. I fear not. And perhaps he was, the two attempts of kidnap in Felixstowe there were more.
Yeah, there was a 7-year gap, wasn't there, between 1999 and the murders of the women in Ipswich in 2006. And so Steve Wright has now admitted guilt for the attempted kidnap of Emily Doherty, as well as the murder of Vicky Hall. And as you say, he then went on to murder these other 5 women. How common is it for a serial killer to have committed a crime ahead of killing multiple women?
I think what we know is that when men kill in sexual murders in this way, that's not the first time they commit an offence. And I think when you start to look at the history and you understand the history of these sorts of murders, you will see somebody who is sexually offending in all sorts of ways before perhaps they kill. And, as we saw, for example, with Wayne Couzens, he was exposing himself all over the place and doing other types of crimes which were often not taken seriously at all, but actually are indicators of somebody who is potentially very dangerous, and indicators of escalating offending. So the important point really is that we must take these so-called lower level offences, which can still have a huge impact, seriously as well, where they may indicate that somebody is likely to escalate, and in any event, because they are crimes.
The government have this strategy, don't they, to halve violence against women and girls by the end of this parliament. I wonder what you make of that in light of what we're talking about today and the other examples that you put forward, Harriet Wistrich, and whether or not the government needs actually to be really doing more. What do you make of the strategy first, and what more can be done, do you think?
I mean, I think it's obviously good, but highly ambitious to be able to achieve that. The government are trying to bring together a whole system approach in relation to looking not just at criminal responses, but responses within education and health and so on. So all of that is good. I don't think that they will achieve their ambition, sadly, but it's a start. One of the initiatives which has been rolled out in relation to the investigation of rape and is now being extended to domestic abuse and other areas is something that was known as Operation Soteria and Operation Bright Light, which is about a different way, an obvious way, really, of investigating serious sexual offences and domestic abuse, which is about placing the focus and the resources very much on investigating the perpetrator, not questioning the victim. And that's been, the real problem in relation to the investigation of sexual offences and, more generally, that victims are questioned, are they telling the truth? Why did they behave in that way? Didn't they bring it on? All those sorts of questions, which, apart from being absolutely devastating for somebody who's suffered a serious offence from a man, are completely misguided, because actually they're taking the focus away from saying, not looking at who that victim is, but actually thinking, well, what sort of man would do this? And let's find out what we have on our files. And often we discover that actually, and probably, there should be an inquiry in relation to Steve Wright and to look at his history more widely, because I very much fear that we will discover he's committed more crimes and possibly more murders. So that is the lesson of this. And and I think I really feel for your interviewee, Emily, that she's carrying this so-called survivor's guilt. I mean, the message to Emily is, please, don't blame yourself, blame the police, blame obviously Steve Wright. You did nothing wrong, you reported it, and the police failed you, and the guilt should be theirs.
Well, Harriet Wistrich, we really appreciate your time and your thoughts this morning.
Thanks so much,
Harriet Wistrich from the Centre for Women's Justice. Thanks so much.
Good morning to you. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is fighting for his political future. The Prime Minister has apologised for making Peter Mandelson our ambassador to the United States, despite knowing about his relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
But his apology has done little to silence his critics, who see the appointment as an unforgivable lapse of judgment. And the mounting anger is perhaps strongest from those within his own party. Former Deputy Labour leader Harriet Harman told Sky News he risks being toppled by the fiasco unless he takes action.
Yeah, backbenchers have called for either his Chief of Staff, that is Morgan McSweeney, to be sacked, or for Sir Keir to step down himself. So just how much trouble is the PM in? Our political editor, Beth Rigby, has this.
Mandelson knew Epstein, but none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship.
Once the PM's man in Washington, now his gravest threat.
He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew.
Keir Starmer's decision to put Mandelson back into his government has left the PM fighting for his own political life.
No one is above accountability.
The gravity of Starmer's predicament made plain as he came to Hastings to deliver an apology to Epstein's victims.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again.
His simmering fury barely below the surface. He knows Mandelson might prove a wrong he cannot right. Prime Minister, we can all hear your anger, your regret, and most importantly, your apology to victims. But look, whatever he said or didn't say, it has proved a catastrophic error of your judgment to put him back into your government. Some of your MPs believe you must take responsibility for this in order to restore trust in politics. And some are saying publicly now that you should stand down because your positions become untenable. Why are they wrong?
Well, Beth, as I've said a number of times, I regret the decision to appoint Mandelson as ambassador. He was asked questions about the nature and extent of his relationship with Epstein, and he told lies.
And Starmer's message to his MPs who think he can't go on?
I understand their anger and frustration. They are angry about his association with Epstein, as am I. We must remain focused on what we were elected into government to do, which is to change this country for the better for millions of people.
Opponents trying to use the moment to force change at the top of number 10.
It is now up to Labour MPs to do the right thing. I know there are many of them who are horrified by what has happened. They might now expect the Prime Minister to take responsibility, but we know he won't. He will have to be dragged out of number 10. If they want the change they know the country needs, let's talk seriously about a vote of no confidence to force the moment.
Even allies asking if time is up.
But it will bring him down unless he takes the action which is really necessary for him to take, and that's this. He's got to stop blaming Mandelson and saying, he lied to me. Peter Mandelson was called the Prince of Darkness. It's not a secret that he was a bad person. Why on earth did Peter Mandelson even get in the room to be considered for this ambassadorship?
That is a question many of his MPs are asking. The mood in the party is mutinous. One minister told me they did not think he could survive, saying the party is simply too upset. Another, when I asked about a possible challenge, simply replied, temperatures are running high. Starmer is clearly fighting for his political survival. The passion and the fury today was palpable. But for all of that, there is a terminal gloom descending on his premiership, that from this crisis, there is simply no way back. But as for what comes next for the Labour Party, that's unclear. All the conditions are there for a challenge to his premiership, but for now, his cabinet choose to sit on their hands. The Prime Minister will hope his apology was heard not just by his MPs, but people across the country, and that it has bought him some time. But he knows too that his future is far from certain, and it's beyond his control. Beth Rigby, Sky News.
So let's bring in Amanda once again. Hi there, Amanda. So you've got the likes of these senior Labour figures like Harriet Harman weighing in now. So how much does that add to the pressure on Keir Starmer, do you think?
Well, certainly Harriet Harman is a Labour grandee, Labour peer, former deputy leader of the party, very well-known figure. And it's pretty damning what she's had to say, that this makes him look weak, gullible and naive. And also, I think, really getting to the point that I think many Labour MPs are explicitly angry about, that it's not so much about whether or not he believed what Mandelson had to say, but that he was even considering appointing him in the first place, given the historic scandals associated with him, his nickname, Prince of Darkness, clearly, but also, obviously, all of the evidence that was in the public domain about his ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, who reports in the Financial Times and so on. Now, Mike Tapp, the Home Office Minister, clearly hasn't been in government very long himself, but when asked about this, said he believed the Prime Minister, said that he believed his explanation, that the Prime Minister's a good man, and said that he knows that the Prime Minister is very angry and upset personally about all of this, and that he trusts that he will release all the documents which will explain his position. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
For me, the sign of good leadership and of good government isn't necessarily whether you make mistakes, because that happens, but it's about whether you own them and you act on them.
And he has.
And we clearly
but we still haven't got to the point as to why, with all of these red flags about this man, this government was so keen to appoint him. Is it because he's so close with Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff? Is it because he was constantly in number 10, helping with reshuffles? He was helping pick candidates. He just has some kind of hold over the Labour Party, and I want to try and understand from you why that is.
Well, Peter Mandelson has been a big figure in politics for decades, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he lost a couple of jobs because of his bad judgment, and yet you guys gave him another plum job when you knew that there were problems with him.
He's tricked, he's lied, he's weaseled. That was believed by the vetting process, and it's really important that these documents are released so we make sure it never, ever happens again, because we deserve better than that.
I mean, pretty forceful in his defence there, and as you say, said the Prime Minister was a good man. We're going to keep asking these questions, aren't they? We're going to have to keep coming up with these lines until we get all the detail and we find out how this plays out. Let's leave that aside, because there's lots of reporting this morning, isn't there, about potential challenges to Keir Starmer. We've been talking about it for months, but I guess it's come into sharp focus again.
Well, absolutely. Potential rivals are having to decide whether they're really going to put their money where their mouth is, effectively. I mean, we have Mike Tapp saying we need to stick with the Prime Minister. That's the only way this kind of Labour project is going to survive and achieve anything. And I think that is a genuine argument for many in the party, even if they do have concerns about Sir Keir Starmer. And I think it's quite notable that we haven't really had any big names or really willing to stick their head above the parapet and call for the Prime Minister to go, a handful of kind of left-wing MPs. At the same time, the Mail reporting today today that Angela Rayner has told allies that she's ready to go for a leadership challenge with a war chest of £1 million. Now, it's important to say, her team say they don't recognise those reports. But clearly there's a lot of attention on her, particularly after she kind of led the rebellion against the government's plans on how they were going to release these documents earlier in the week. Wes Streeting, of course, is the other big name, but he's someone who's been very close to Peter Mandelson over the years, so that's a challenge for him too. So I think it's quite difficult to unseat a Labour leader, so unless there is a kind of open challenge or the party kind of clearly coalesces around someone, it's going to be difficult. But we've got that by-election coming up in Gorton and Denton. That'll be a real moment of jeopardy, and then, of course, the local elections too. So there's, you know, plenty of opportunities for this all to go very wrong for the Prime Minister.
A couple of flashpoints to come,
Yeah.
And briefly, obviously, the government really keen to try and move the agenda away from Peter Mandelson and start talking about other achievements. They want to talk about migration today, for example.
Yes, absolutely. So they put out this press release where they've been crunching the numbers about the number of illegal migrants being deported or removed from the UK, and they say that since they took office, nearly 60,000 people have gone, and that's a 30% or so increase on that equivalent period before. And in terms of enforced removals for people who didn't want to leave, who've been deported, that's up by 45%, although that's only 15,000 of that total 60,000. And the number of foreign national offenders, that's gone up 30% too. So they're saying, you know, look at this shows how well we're doing in terms of our immigration policy. We've got much more to do. The Tories are pointing out, well, actually, look at the small boat figures for that time, 65,000. So that goes far beyond that figure that had been sent home. So it really shows the kind of uphill battle they've still got with it.
A lot of work to be done. Amanda, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, let's bring you a bit of positive news now this morning for people who are dealing with high cholesterol. A landmark study has found statins used by millions are far safer than previously thought. It's great.
It is good news, so let's find out more about it. We'd like to talk about good news. Molly's here to tell us more. Statins are getting pretty clean bill of health there.
Yeah, and this matters because statins are one of the most commonly prescribed drugs here in the UK. Millions of people take them, around 7 or 8 million people take them. Obviously, they're used to help lower cholesterol levels. They're used to prevent things like heart attacks and strokes and cardiovascular disease, which accounts for about a quarter of the deaths here in the UK. So that's why it matters. But it has, for a long time, come with a warning of lots of different side effects and quite serious side effects as well. And now what this major review has found that's been published in The Lancet is that actually, according to this research, that they're much safer to use than previously thought. And actually, the study suggested that advice on things like leaflets, when you get prescribed that drug and you look at the kind of side effects, that kind of advice should change as a result of this research. It was a trial of 120,000 people comparing the use of statins versus a placebo or a dummy drug, and the people that were taking part in the trial didn't know which one they were taking. And it basically found that statins aren't the cause of the majority of the possible side effects, so suggesting there's no increased risk of things like memory loss, depression, sleep problems, weight gain, so serious side effects. The people in the trial were then followed for 4.5 years, so a considerable amount of research, a long time, and only 4 out of about 66 side effects were found to actually have any association with statins. So the message from these scientists is that they're safer than previously thought, and actually, in their view, and it's considerable research with significant effects, actually the benefits of taking statins for things like cardiovascular disease, heart disease, can outweigh the risks that we've previously come to know about.
Excellent stuff. Millions and millions are using them, so it's really good news.
Yeah, about 7, 8 million people, so it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Molly.
That's Molly. Thank you very much. All right, we'll be back in a couple of minutes' time. We're going to keep talking about the situation facing the Prime Minister over the Peter Mandelson scandal. We're going to hear from a Labour backbencher. Stay with us. Right, with the stage set for Super Bowl Sunday, advertisers are vying to capture the attention of those 120 million Americans and people around the world who I guess will be tuning in.
The ads are a very big part of the
They're
whole
a
thing,
huge
I think.
part of this,
And one of the
aren't they?
world's biggest tech companies, Anthropic, is going to seize the moment by taking a swipe at its rival OpenAI for rolling out ads on its platform. So let's talk about this a little bit more. We're joined now by the founding partner of MSQ Sport and Entertainment, Steve Martin, who's here with us. Hi, very good morning. Thanks so much for talking to us. So we've got AI brands at war, and it's all playing out via advertising. That must be quite exciting if you're in the world of advertising.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it almost takes you back to the Cola Wars, doesn't it? Pepsi versus Coca-Cola, and then sort of the Adidas Nike sort of phase, if you like, all these sort of brands at each other. And I think these new tech brands have emerged from nowhere. I mean, 12 months ago, we weren't even talking about Claude or ChatGPT, and now they're advertising in the Super Bowl. So it's an extraordinary sort of growth of brands that really nobody understood, and where people have been scared of AI, but they're actually elevating their brands to such an extent. And as you say, 125, 130 million people around Super Bowl with an incredible investment. I mean, a 30-second ad spot is $7 or $8 million.
Oh, really?
So it's a big game they're playing.
But I guess when you've got that many eyeballs, you can see why they're prepared to spend the money.
Yeah, I mean, Super Bowl is, a cultural moment, as we know, across the world, but it's also become a big media moment in our game, and, particularly our agency at MSQ, we're obviously looking at brands around big cultural moments, big sporting moments, but there's nothing bigger than the Super Bowl. So it's for them to come in and play at this game. They're in with brands that have been household names for years. So I think it's very exciting, and I quite like the fact that they're going at each other. They're creating a story by almost attacking each other.
Let's just give our viewers a little bit of the background here. So these are two companies that make an AI product, right? And one of the complaints is that ads are going to start playing within the AI. So you ask the AI a question, it'll give you some advice, and then it'll feed you an advert for some product. And we've got a little bit of it. Let's play a little clip, and then we'll talk again to Steve off the back.
Hey, can I get a six-pack quickly? Perfect. That is a clear and achievable goal. Would you like me to tailor a personalized workout plan? Yes. Perfect. Let me personalize this for you.
I mean, it's very Black Mirror. He then goes on to offer a product that can help with his plan. I put a question to AI about whether or not it should be advertising in it, and I got two answers because it's just how I phrased the question. What do you think, as a man who works in the business, as to how AI will start using advertising going forward?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think this has happened before. I think there was uproar when Facebook started taking advertising, Netflix, Spotify, all the big tech platforms. It's when the audience gets to such a scale. I mean, they're talking about 800 million users a week on ChatGPT, and Claude, which is this business was part of Anthropic. They're up to 30-odd million a month. So the scale is vast. They've been very clever that they're attacking their competitor. They're the challenger in this space, if you like. But advertising playing out, it's not new. It's really, I think, where the debate comes in is whether it's correct and it's right.
Is it problematic to have advertising on AI? Because, you could be offered a product that perhaps the AI thinks you need, but it doesn't actually have any benefit for you.
Well, that's right, and I think that's their challenge, the environment of having advertising within the AI space. It's still got to be credible. It's got to be the right environment. It can't oversell to you. So I'll be interested. Claude have taken this very pure position that they're not going to take advertising. At the end of the day, once these things become ubiquitous with people, people use them more, the numbers don't lie, they're going to have to find a way.
And the reason they're taking on this issue is because ChatGPT, OpenAI, has said that they're going to trial introducing adverts. But I noticed that Sam Altman from OpenAI has said that these adverts are very funny by Anthropic, but they're clearly dishonest. He said there's no way that they would never run ads in the way that they're portraying it. But it's definitely got under his skin, hasn't it? I mean, do you think he's got the right approach in hitting out like that about them?
I don't know. I mean, I think he reacted pretty strongly. Some have said, he's overreacted. What I think he has done, I mean, there's a golden rule in our game: you don't react too much because you feel the fire. He's fueled the fire. He's given more noise.
We're talking about it now.
It's exactly what their competition want. It's exactly what we're here talking about now, as you said. So he's sort of made, I suspect, a bigger issue of it. But he's right in a lot of things he actually says, because what OpenAI are trying to do is make it, open to all. They're trying to, that's the reason the name, they're trying to make AI understand and, used by more people around the world. But he's made his competitor sort of very famous as a result. Which is exactly what they want.
A personal feel, I mean, I think I know what you'll say, but if my AI started offering me ads, I think I'd be quite uncomfortable with it, and I wonder whether I'd find one that didn't feed me ads.
We don't know how they're going to be fed to us, though, I guess. We don't
Subtly, apparently, the AI tells me that.
We'll have to see.
Very subtle, personalised. It's going to offer proactive assistance, contextual relevance, as you said. So it's going to be really, really... What we may not even notice is that the way you want to get into.
And brands, rely on trust. You're building at that scale of audience at that pace, which is what they're doing. I mean, this is rapid growth. It's lightning growth. They're going to make mistakes on the way up. But, people aren't silly and they're not stupid. They know if they're being advertised to and marketed to. So the environment and that trust element, so you're not being, sold dummies, if you know what I mean, and sold services that have no relevance to you. So I think they're going to have to watch this going forward. There's going to have to be a certain sense of purity towards it, but it's I suspect there'll be some mistakes made on the way.
Interesting stuff.
Very funny and very briefly, will you watch the Super Bowl for the adverts, or will you?
Watch the football. You can't miss the adverts in the Super Bowl.
No.
I mean, that's the thing. It's almost a sport that stops-starts so much. I mean, we saw it in the Six Nations last night. It was the first time we saw ads in the middle of the game, and a lot of things have become Americanized. But the Super Bowl is perfect for advertising. I mean, it's an advertiser's dream because it stops and starts so much. But it's definitely coming this way. But I think it's, it's a big cultural moment, and us working in the sport and entertainment industry, we love these things and get around.
You're going to get the popcorn in.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Settle down and watch the ads.
Appreciate you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah. If you guys have got any thoughts about ads in your AI, you can always contact us mornings at sky.uk. I'd like to hear your opinion.
Oh, ads in your sport as well?
Absolutely. Indeed. All right.
We're going to return to politics right now, though, because Keir Starmer's leadership does look far from certain today, with backbenchers calling for either his chief of staff to be sacked or for the Prime Minister himself to step down after revelations about Lord Mandelson's dealings with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, the fulsome apology from the Prime Minister yesterday has done little to silence critics who see the appointment of Mandelson as ambassador to the United States as a serious, unforgivable lapse of judgment. Let's speak to Ian Byrne, Labour MP for Liverpool West Derby. Ian Byrne, MP, thanks so much for being with us and good morning to you. I know you've said a few things about this to other broadcasters over the past few days. I wonder where you are this morning, having had time, I guess, to sleep on it and think about the Prime Minister's position. Is his position untenable at this stage?
I think, like so many Labour MPs at the moment, you're just extremely angry that, we're in this position. We're talking about this disastrous political decision which was made by the Prime Minister and looks like his advisors as well. And Mandelson should never ever be near that post with what was known about him. And these flags, these red flags were there. People were really talking about why he shouldn't be in that position. I always remember reading John McDonnell put a post out saying to the Prime Minister, do not put that man in that position. John's known decades. I listened to Harriet Harman yesterday talk about him as well. So, it was well known what Mandelson was. And then allied to his relationship with Epstein. So I'm so angry that we're not talking and we're not utilising this huge majority, what we've got, for the benefit of the country. Instead, these political decisions, which have come down the line over the last 18 months, and we're on TV talking about it.
What do you make of how Keir Starmer's handled it since? We saw him yesterday saying he's sorry he believed Mandelson's lies, but he said he was lied to and he couldn't have known everything then that he's learned since. He has issued those apologies. Do you want more from him now? What can he do now, in your view?
I think the apology was welcome, to the victims and survivors, of Epstein. But I'm sorry, it doesn't wash with me. It was well known, the character trait of Mandelson, what he was. He's been a huge influence over the Labour Party for a long, long time, has continued that. He's extremely close with Morgan McSweeney. That's well known within where we work in Westminster. Mandelson had a huge influence, and unfortunately, the Prime Minister, it looks like, has listened to those influences, and he's been put in that role, Mandelson, which he should never have been near. It was well known what he was. So to suddenly say that he lied at an interview during the vetting process, well, I'm surprised. No, not at all, no, not at all. And what surprises me that the people around the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister himself are actually surprised. And I'm sure he is angry, because I'd be angry if I was him. However, he should have listened. He should have listened to those people who were flagging up that this was a catastrophic appointment, and he didn't, and that's why we're here today.
Surprised that someone has lied before is lying to them again. Look, I tried to get from Mike Tapp, whether or not, what the why was behind all of this, and why is those red flags, as you point out, Ian Byrne, were there, as many have pointed out. What the why is to why they wanted to overlook some of those concerns. What's your understanding of that? You've mentioned Mandelson being in the party and being known about in the party, but why don't you give our viewers a little sense as to sort of how important, I guess, he is, or was, at least to the Labour Party?
Well, as a lowly backbencher, I'm not privy to what was said within Cabinet and within the halls of number 10 in the rooms. However, what we will do is now see the scale of what was said between them, and hopefully, you know, when the files are released and the Security Committee sees everything and that's put into the public domain, we'll get a full picture of why the Prime Minister made that decision, because ultimately it was his decision, you know, and if Morgan McSweeney and his closeness to Mandelson and this appointment was a result of ignoring those red flags, ignoring those voices that said don't do it, and McSweeney advised the Prime Minister to do that. Well, ultimately, you know, McSweeney's got to look at his own position, but the Prime Minister as well has got to reflect on, he took the advice if it was given, he ignored advice that maybe was given by other parties, and we get to where we are now, which is a catastrophic political situation for the Prime Minister, for the Labour Party, and indeed, more importantly, for the country.
So should he go?
I think he's got to reflect on his position. You know, he's an intelligent man.
But what's that mean?
Got to look
or, you know, reflect on his position. But would you rather that he went?
I genuinely think he's got to look at the consequences of his actions. You know, what he's enabled by putting Mandelson in that job, and that may come out. You know, we don't know what Mandelson's done within that job while he was in there, because if he's used the same modus operandum which he's used previously, and which we've seen with the emails and the leaks to Epstein and the undermining of Gordon Brown as Prime Minister. Well, God knows what's happened. So for me, you know, he's lost a huge amount of confidence within the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's lost a huge amount of confidence within the country, and he's in a very perilous political situation at this moment. And he needs a miracle. He needs something to turn it round. Now, whether he's got that, and it's quite apt. I'm standing in my office in Liverpool, I'm looking at the miracle of Istanbul. And it feels like half-time at Istanbul here. But Stephen Gerrard, as Keir Starmer got an inner Stephen Gerrard to turn that recovery round, many had doubt that.
Liverpool were 3 down and then came back to win that game, didn't they? So were you suggesting the Prime Minister can pull this back around in? I mean, and look, you've talked about the politicians, your sense, John McDonnell, others within the party, but you touched a little bit there on the public as well, because we've got some electoral tests coming up, haven't we? That's going to be a real sort of crucible for how this goes going forward.
No, absolutely. We've got the huge by-election in Greater Manchester, a couple of weeks away. And obviously we've got the elections coming down the line in May, and we'll have to see what happens. They're going to be huge tests for the government, you know, from a public opinion point of view, and going to the polls, and we're going to see
constituents coming to you,
the stark reality.
Have your constituents raised
my constituents? Yeah, my constituents aren't happy at all. I've had Labour Party members resign in disgust of what they're seeing. So I'm losing Labour Party members on the constituency, on the doorsteps. People are so angry on so many different fronts, because unfortunately 18 months there's been some cataclysmic political decisions which have turned into seriously unpopular Prime Minister, and unfortunately we're picking up the pieces. You know, I was suspended for 6 months from the Parliamentary Labour Party for voting to scrap the 2-child limit. Last week, I went to the same lobby with the Labour Party to vote, thankfully, to scrap the 2-child limit. So these 18 months, the political decision-making around Downing Street has been poor, in my opinion.
Well, Ian Byrne, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for chatting to us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Morning.
Let's check on the weather, shall we?
Indeed.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, the weather looks unsettled into the weekend with spells of rain and hail snow bringing localised disruption. It's grey and chilly out right now with outbreaks of rain and hail snow, but the south is mild. Northern Ireland and central Britain will see prolonged, locally heavy rain this morning, with hail snow turning increasingly to rain. Elsewhere, you can expect widespread showers and further snow on Scottish hills, but the far northwest looks like it'll be fine. It will be chilly in the windy north, milder in the calmer south. The afternoon looks similar, but more general rain spread across southern Scotland.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Now then, Jackie's got sport in just a moment. Hi there, Jackie. And
Good morning.
so much to talk about.
Yes, so much. Winter Olympics starting tonight. But last night, you were just doing weather. Last night, the weather in Paris was not very nice, and France blew Ireland away in that first Six Nations match, which was really odd because it was on a Thursday because of the Winter Olympics, but a real message there for the other teams in the Six Nations. We'll show you some action after this.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest and Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island.
The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out.
The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here. In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
So Jackie's here, and we're going to talk Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
And there is so much sport to talk about, but something that's been occupying our minds.
Well,
and,
yeah,
a few people's minds.
Well, a lot of the back pages today. I mean, it's kind of been the topic of discussion at the Winter Olympics, which starts tonight with the opening ceremony, by the way, which was why the rugby was on a Thursday, not a Friday. Was ski jumpers and their suits that they used to ski jump in. And basically, in January, there was an interview, or not an interview, there was a report in Bild newspaper in Germany saying that there was some rumours that ski jumpers were injecting their penises with hyaluronic acid to make them bigger, so that when they were measured for their suits, there was more material in the suit. With the theory, and it has been proven, this part has been proven, that is, if there's more material, you can fly further, and it's considerably further, like 10 metres or something. So there was no proof. Nobody's been accused. By the way, hyaluronic acid is not a banned substance, and it was WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, that were being questioned at the Olympics yesterday. They all found it, I think, a little bit amusing, and we need to look into this. But
the fact that it isn't a banned substance does make that a bit more complicated, I guess.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I think in the spirit of the games and the rules of ski jumping, not that I'm an expert, they have to be properly measured, and it's very, very scientific for their suits, and it's literally skin tight. And there was an instance of one team using extra stitching in the seams around this area of the body to make the suits work better, and they were found, and that was Norway.
The Norwegian team, yeah. More surface area of suits so you can glide further, and yes.
What did you say they were like?
Flying squirrels.
Flying squirrels. Yeah, I was thinking more bats, but I mean, it's hard to get your head around. Really,
it is a little bit. It is a little bit. So they are investigating whether or not this is actually taking place.
Whether it's a thing.
Yeah.
But somebody's got that story from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's so random. There's
not the sort of thing you make.
Surely.
Make it up.
No.
Kind of hoping there's some truth in it. Anyway, there is truth in the curling. That is going on right now. The mixed curling is happening even before the Olympics have started. Bruce Moat, who spoke to me a couple of weeks ago, very much hoping for a gold medal in the mixed curling, but more importantly, the men's curling team, absolute favourites for gold. We should show you what is happening in the mixed curling, and it is Jen Dodds and there's Jen, who's in the women's team as well, who won gold last time with Eve Muirhead. They're a team. They have won 3 matches out of 3 so far, beating Norway. That was a tough one to start. Estonia, and then Czech Republic. And it's a round-robin format, and the concession is that really, if you win 6 of your matches, you will probably go through to a semi-final. So already well on the way to achieving something in that. Last night, though, I don't know if you watched the Six Nations.
Didn't see it.
Well, I mean, I think Ireland knew it was going to be a very tough opening match against France. France, the reigning Six Nations champions. Ireland won the previous 2 before that. And it's very odd to be talking about an Ireland team not being, among the favourites to take this title again, but definitely not. They've had retirements, they've got injuries, not replacing like for like. It's been a difficult time. Farrell has come back as their coach after his stint in charge of the British and Irish Lions. So there was a little bit of hope that would mean something, but France absolutely blew them away last night. 36-14 was the final score. And it was a real humbling in Paris. They absolutely raced into a lead, and Ireland, well, for the first 50 minutes, looked kind of a bit sort of shell-shocked. Let's have a look at the tries, a couple of them. The star of the show was this guy, Louis Biabiari, was the star, the 22-year-old opening the scoring for France on 12 minutes with a piece of individual brilliance. He followed that up with another try on 47 minutes, right here. France into a 29-0 lead, totally dominating. There was an Ireland fight back in the second half. There were 2 tries of their own, but at that point, I think France had taken their foot off the gas, and then France finished with a real flourish, and that's such a good message for everyone else. I mean, can anyone stop them? Maybe England, like they did last year, but maybe not. They were really a show of force last night. We should also mention Leicester as the big story that broke yesterday late on, which was Leicester have been docked 6 points. We knew it was coming. They knew it was coming. It was just a question of how many. It was an independent commission. In the end, they said it's got to be 6 points, which moves them in the Championship down to 20th place. They are now in a fight for survival. Their form is not good. They've lost the last 3. That has been looming because of they've broken financial fair play rules, and it's happened for the 23-24 season.
Yeah.
And
tough for the players, isn't it?
They probably will appeal. Tough for the players, tough for the fans. Not knowing where your team's going to be and could end up being relegated as a result of this.
Is this still a debate about docking points in season? I know it happened to Forest and Everton a couple of years back, and it was really,
it's the same.
Really upsetting, right?
Well, but you've got to stick to the rules, and they broke the rules by almost £20 million. You can't. You've got a threshold. Do not lose more than this amount of money, and they broke that by almost £20 million.
So it's a harsh punishment in season to make sure you don't do it.
It could have been a lot worse. Do you want to have a look at quick look at Ben Stokes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't even bowling, wasn't even batting.
Oh, my
Got
goodness.
smacked in the face with a cricket ball in practice. And he wrote on his Instagram, "You should see the state of the cricket ball."
Oh, my.
If anyone wonders how hard a cricket ball is, that's what it does to a
How
face.
sore does that look?
Poor bloke. Get well soon, Stokesy.
Yeah.
Jackie, thank you for that. And we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hello and a very good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. It's how we're looking.
A survivor of the Suffolk Strangler tells Sky News how she narrowly escaped the serial killer as he attempted to abduct her.
Sir Keir Starmer branded weak for blaming Peter Mandelson's lies for the crisis that now engulfs his premiership, as a senior Labour figure warns that the saga could bring the PM down.
Also today, lights, camera, action.
Indeed.
The Winter Olympics 2026 ceremony is tonight, but there are already scandals emerging with claims of banned helmets and, would you believe it, crutch enhancements.
Plus, Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights gets the Hollywood treatment. We'll have reporting from last night's red carpet.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A woman stalked by the Suffolk Strangler the night before he abducted and murdered Vicky Hall in 1999 says she knew her life was in danger. Emily Doherty has spoken for the first time to Sky News about how she managed to escape from Steve Wright and raise the alarm.
Yeah, Wright, who is serving a whole life term for the murders of 5 women, will today be sentenced at the Old Bailey for Vicky's murder and Emily's attempted kidnap. Our correspondent Emma Birchley has our top story.
I bricked it. I pegged it. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger.
Emily Doherty has never spoken about the night she was almost abducted by a man who would become a serial killer, and the police, she said, didn't take her seriously. But the very next day, 17-year-old Victoria Hall was kidnapped just a couple of miles along the road, and her body then dumped in a ditch. That man's name was Steve Wright, now known as one of the country's most notorious serial killers, nicknamed the Suffolk Strangler.
I thought that must be him. It can't be a coincidence. The next night, someone else.
It was the early hours of September the 18th, 1999. Emily was walking home from a club with her husband and another couple, but the 2 women ended up way ahead. Her friend said she had to go, and Emily was left alone.
I remember the first instance I saw him. The door was open. The engine was running and he was standing by the car. He saw me and I saw him.
She ran.
I jumped over a wall and knocked on someone's door and said, "Let me in." But no one answered.
Petrified, Emily kept running and got down on all fours to peer around the corner to see if he'd gone.
Suddenly, he was literally right there. He stepped right into me. He said, "All right," in a low, sleazy way. In that instance, I knew my life was in danger. I just knew. The adrenaline kicked in.
She sprinted away, and this time a couple did answer the door and called 999, but she says she didn't get the response she expected.
The police came, but they didn't believe me at all.
She says she gave them at least some of the number plate and offered to give a statement later the same day.
They said that won't be necessary. Forget about it. I really felt like they didn't take me seriously at all. They treated me like a silly little girl.
The next day, Emily left to go travelling in India, but when she rang home, there was a message asking her to call the police urgently. The manhunt was already underway for Vicky Hall's killer, her body having been found 25 miles away. 5 days after disappearing from the same club in Felixstowe that Emily had been at the night before. Emily did give a statement over the phone from the Himalayas.
That was the last I ever heard about it.
In 2006, 7 years later, that same killer, still walking the streets, would murder 5 sex workers he'd picked up in Ipswich's red light district. Their bodies were found in rural locations, just like Vicky's had been. Steve Wright, who denied the charges, was given a whole life jail term. Vicky's murder had remained a mystery, but 20 years on, the case was reopened and eventually Wright would be charged with killing her too. At the start of his trial at the Old Bailey, he finally changed his plea to guilty, admitting murdering Vicky and attempting to abduct Emily.
You can't help thinking, if they had taken me seriously, Vicky would have survived. But certainly if they had found him sooner, the 5 other women might still be here.
Well, Emma Birchley, who carried out that interview, is now here with us. A morning to you, Emma. And it really is an extraordinary interview and very brave of Emily to speak out about her horrendous experience. And it also kind of reminds us of that time, doesn't it? A horrendous time when Vicky Hall disappeared, and then this story about Emily Doherty came forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around there. I used to go to that same nightclub. I was in my mid-20s at the time. It was an enormous story at the time, this huge mystery.
a 17-year-old goes missing, what has happened, and then the discovery of the body, and only 20 years later is the case reopened. You imagine what that's like for the family. And in fact, Vicky's mum only died in December, so she never actually got to see justice. But then the horror for Emily. You think about this. 24 hours before, she is being pursued around the streets of sleepy Felixstowe. On all fours, peering round corners, the car engine stops, she thinks she's safe, there he is looming over her. She runs again, she knocks on doors, no one answers the door. It is truly the stuff of a horror film, and that has stayed with Emily for all these years. I mean, it's been more than 26 years. The police are called, and the fact is, she says she simply wasn't taken seriously. You know, she gave a bit of the number plate, she gave a description, she went off to India, phoned home, and they said, oh, she phoned home and there was a message saying, call the police urgently, so she has an hour-long call from the Himalayas. And that was that. They'd talked about sending someone out to do an e-fit image. That never happened. And that was that. She tried to call again in 2002-03. She called the police in 2013-ish. She said, saying, is there something you want to show me? Is there an image? And she says, nothing happened. And the fact is that Vicky died. But 7 years later, of course, we had the Ipswich murders, those 5 women that Steve Wright picked up and killed and dumped in very similar circumstances, left their bodies in rural locations all around the Ipswich area, just as Vicky's had been found that 7 years before. So there is a real sense, at least, of missed opportunities. And that's exactly what Harriet Wistrich from the Centre for Women's Justice said to us earlier.
Had the police taken her seriously when she initially reported it and not disbelieved her, things may have turned out very, very differently. Whether or not it would ever have stopped the murder of Vicky Hall, certainly there was a good chance that they could have caught this man a lot earlier. Instead, her really significant evidence was dismissed by them.
So today, it's the sentencing of Steve Wright for Vicky's murder, for the attempted kidnap of Emily. We expect here from Vicky's dad and brother victim impact statements, which they may well read out themselves. A statement too from Vicky's friend who was with her that night. They'd parted just a few hundred metres before Vicky's home after that night out together. We have to remember that Steve Wright is already serving a whole life term. There's nothing more, actually, as a sentence that he can get. But we really must understand the impact of there finally being a conclusion for Vicky's family, but also, at last, for Emily, the sense you really get from her is that she's finally being heard.
Absolutely. Brilliant reporting, Emma. Of course, thank you so much for that. And, of course, we'll keep an eye on events at the Old Bailey later on today.
Now, let's just remind you of some news that's been breaking this morning. And a Russian general has been shot several times outside a residential building in Moscow.
Yeah, an unknown gunman was reportedly waiting outside of the home of Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev when he was shot. Now, Alexeyev holds the position of first deputy head of Russia's military intelligence unit. He is said to be in hospital as an important man within the Russian military, at first deputy head of that GRU unit responsible for the Russian special forces, and also an individual who was sanctioned by the UK and the EU for being implicated in the Salisbury attacks back in 2019. He remains in hospital.
Now here, Sir Keir Starmer is fighting for his political life. The Prime Minister said he regretted the decision to make Peter Mandelson US ambassador, despite knowing about his relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and he's apologised to Epstein's victims. But his apology has done little to silence his critics, who see the appointment as an unforgivable lapse of judgment.
Yeah, the mounting anger is perhaps strongest from those within his own party. The former deputy leader of the Labour Party, Harriet Harman, has told Sky News that Keir Starmer risks being toppled unless he takes action. Backbenchers have called for either his chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, to be sacked or for Sir Keir to step down himself. So just how much trouble is he in? Here's our political editor, Beth Rigby.
Mandelson knew Epstein, But none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship.
Once the PM's man in Washington, now his gravest threat.
He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew.
Keir Starmer's decision to put Mandelson back into his government has left the PM fighting for his own political life.
No one is above accountability.
The gravity of Starmer's predicament made plain as he came to Hastings to deliver an apology to Epstein's victims.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again.
His simmering fury barely below the surface. He knows Mandelson might prove a wrong he cannot right. Prime Minister, we can all hear your anger, your regret, and most importantly, your apology to victims. But look, whatever he said or didn't say, it has proved a catastrophic error of your judgment to put him back into your government. Some of your MPs believe you must take responsibility for this in order to restore trust in politics. And some are saying publicly now that you should stand down because your positions become untenable. Why are they wrong?
Well, Beth, as I've said a number of times, I regret the decision to appoint Mandelson as ambassador. He was asked questions about the nature and extent of his relationship with Epstein, and he told lies.
And Starmer's message to his MPs who think he can't go on?
I understand their anger and frustration. They are angry about his association with Epstein, as am I. We must remain focused on what we were elected into government to do, which is to change this country for the better for millions of people.
Opponents trying to use the moment to force change at the top of number 10.
It is now up to Labour MPs to do the right thing. I know there are many of them who are horrified by what has happened. They might now expect the Prime Minister to take responsibility, but we know he won't. He will have to be dragged out of number 10. If they want the change they know the country needs, let's talk seriously about a vote of no confidence to force the moment.
Even allies asking if time is up.
But it will bring him down unless he takes the action which is really necessary for him to take, and that's this. He's got to stop blaming Mandelson and saying, he lied to me. Peter Mandelson was called the Prince of Darkness. It's not a secret that he was a bad person. Why on earth did Peter Mandelson even get in the room to be considered for this ambassadorship?
That is a question many of his MPs are asking. The mood in the party is mutinous. One minister told me they did not think he could survive, saying the party is simply too upset. Another, when I asked about a possible challenge, simply replied, temperatures are running high. Starmer is clearly fighting for his political survival. The passion and the fury today was palpable. But for all of that, there is a terminal gloom descending on his premiership, that from this crisis, there is simply no way back. But as for what comes next for the Labour Party, that's unclear. All the conditions are there for a challenge to his premiership, but for now, his cabinet choose to sit on their hands. The Prime Minister will hope his apology was heard not just by his MPs, but people across the country, and that it has bought him some time. But he knows too that his future is far from certain, and it's beyond his control. Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Well, Amanda joins us yet again. Morning again to you, Amanda. So, look, the pressure continues to build on him, right?
Well, absolutely. I think the fact that you've got such a big figure in the Labour Party as Harriet Harman, former deputy leader, member of the House of Lords, coming out with such a damning critique of the Prime Minister, accusing him of being weak, gullible and naive in saying that he believed Peter Mandelson's lies. And really, I think, articulating what many in the party have been saying behind closed doors, which is that why was he ever in that position in the first place? Because it was known about his previous record of scandal. And then, of course, it was well publicised, the fact that this ongoing relationship had continued with stories in the Financial Times and so on. So really raising questions about the Prime Minister's future unless, she says, he gets his house in order and makes big changes at number 10, possibly sacking his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Number of 10 has suggested that's not going to happen. Perhaps many Labour MPs I speak to seem to be suggesting that he would be kind of an acceptable sacrifice almost to show that, you know, the Prime Minister was serious about this and moving on. But then you have many other figures within the party, more in the left, I would say, more of the kind of classic critics of Sir Keir Starmer and his project, who have been more willing to kind of stick their head above the parapet and say he should be considering his position. And that's something that we heard earlier from the Liverpool MP Ian Byrne, who's very angry about it all and says that Sir Keir Starmer's explanation just doesn't wash.
Well, God knows what's happened. So for me, you know, he's lost a huge amount of confidence within the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's lost a huge amount of confidence within the country, and he's in a very perilous political situation at this moment, and he needs a miracle.
Wow.
Well,
angry.
Absolutely. I mean, but it may be that he needs a miracle, but at the same time, it's hard to see exactly what would push him over the edge right now. Clearly, we've got a number of moments of real jeopardy with the Gorton and Denton by-election, the local elections coming up. Until that we have a senior figure, a cabinet member or a number of ministers really being willing to come forward and call for him to go or resigning their positions themselves, it is very difficult to unseat a Labour leader. Of course, the other issue is what happens when all these documents, these secret messages get released, because there's going to be a huge volume of information, and I'm sure much of it will be very embarrassing. So, of course, number 10 seem to be very keen to have that out there as soon as possible, because they believe it will vindicate his position that it was Peter Mandelson lying to him, and it was a reasonable position for the Prime Minister to have taken. But with that number of private messages going out to the public domain, that's going to be a very dicey moment as well, I think.
It certainly is. All right, Amanda, for now, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Thank you. Well, let's get more reaction to this. We can speak now to Matt Vickers, who's Conservative Party Deputy Chairman, who joins us now. A very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. The Prime Minister then has, as we were just hearing there, has said that he was lied to by Peter Mandelson when asking direct questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and he's now apologised for believing those lies. The Prime Minister would say he's acted decisively as soon as more information has emerged. So what more do you, as Conservatives, want?
Well, we've seen him fess up on Wednesday. On Wednesday, at that dispatch box, Kemi forced it out of him. He acknowledged that he knew about these close links to Epstein. The reality is it was all put to him through the vetting process. He knew anyway. He knew what we all know, that Peter Mandelson is a wrong 'un of the highest order. And it's not like he hung out with people who made mistakes. He was closely associated with a vile, evil, depraved child sex offender. The Prime Minister knew this and allowed this man to be appointed to one of the most prestigious diplomatic roles that this country has to offer. If you've got links to the upper echelons of the Labour Party, it looks like the Prime Minister is willing to overlook and bypass any sort of vetting or question marks. It is abhorrent. It's so clear that he has failed and his judgment has completely failed in these circumstances. And then on Wednesday, we saw the absolute saga of the government trying to prevent the publication of details and of all of the documents around this vetting process. It's time for Labour backbenchers to grow backbone and get rid of this Prime Minister.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you say that about Labour backbenchers, because your leader, Kemi Badenoch, has called on them to get in touch over a confidence vote in the wake of these revelations about Peter Mandelson. I wondered how many have come forward to the Conservative Party.
Well, I'll come back to you on that. But the reality is the country has lost confidence. We're now seeing backbencher after backbencher coming out. We've seen Harriet Harman now coming out. This government has completely lost its way. It might be in office. It is not in power. It is no longer running this country. It's just internal squabble after internal squabble. They've trashed our economy. They've broken promise after promise, whether you're a WASPy woman, whether you're a pensioner, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a small business person, in fact, whether you're a person who pays council tax, it was told not a penny more. Every promise has been broken. They've trashed our economy. There's now been scandal after scandal, U-turn after U-turn. Homeless minister left because they made people homeless. Anti-corruption minister left under a cloud around corruption. And now he's appointed to the most prestigious diplomatic post we hold.
But about the question about the Labour MPs, are there many coming forward to Kemi Badenoch? I mean, does she feel that she has the numbers to push ahead with a confidence vote?
Well, we'll see what comes forward in the coming days. We hope that they grow the backbone, that they take responsibility for this government and this Prime Minister they have inflicted on this country. The country cannot go on with this man at the helm.
You're raising concerns about a former Labour Director of Communications, Matthew Doyle, who was given a peerage in December, despite allegations that he campaigned for a councillor at the time, at a time when he'd been charged with possessing and distributing indecent images of children, but not convicted. Matthew Doyle says that this councillor was maintaining his innocence at the time and he regrets campaigning with him. So what are your concerns here?
Well, this appears to be a pattern of behaviour from Keir Starmer and Number 10, this rotten Labour government. The reality is, this is Keir Starmer's former Director of Comms. He chose to appoint this man to the House of Lords, despite knowing, it's now we're asking for all the details, all the vetting documents. This man was out campaigning his chums with a man who had been charged with child sexual offences. It appears to be, it's a pattern of behaviour. It's repeating itself. We're calling on Keir Starmer to come clean. Kemi has written to him, asking him to publish the documents and the details of that vetting process so that the public can make their judgments on whether Keir Starmer is fit to hold Number 10 and whether the people that he is appointing to some of these privileged and honoured positions, he's bypassing yet again all the concerns being put forward to him.
I do want to ask you about something the government is trumpeting today. They say that the Home Secretary is announcing that nearly 60,000 unauthorised migrants and convicted criminals have been removed or deported from the UK since Labour took office. They say that figure's the highest in a decade. Welcome news?
Well, they're spinning away and you seem to be drinking the Kool-Aid. The reality is that those numbers, the vast majority of them, are made up of voluntary returns, people who have chosen to go back. But beyond that, since this government came to office, the number of people arriving illegally on small boats is up nearly 50%, more of them in hotels. And when it comes to returns, of those people who've arrived here illegally, less than 5% of them are being returned. And actually that number's down from the heights they've reached under the last government. More arriving, more in hotels, less of them being removed. The only way to deal with this problem is, as Kemi set out, we leave the ECHR. Anybody who breaks into this country should be removed, sent back to where they came, or a third safe country. No ifs, no buts.
I can assure you I'm not drinking Kool-Aid, I'm just asking questions, just to be clear. And I do want to ask one more as well. No Kool-Aid involved in this either. Donald Trump has now said that the deal over the Chagos Islands was the best Keir Starmer could make. It's a grudging acceptance, but it is an acceptance, isn't it? And it's a far cry from his previous verdict, where he called it an act of great stupidity. It does look like the Prime Minister's won over the President on this, doesn't it?
Well, it depends if you're listening to the Number 10 line or if you're listening to what he wrote himself on Truth, the social media platform, where he said many people have said that it's the best deal. I don't know that Trump's directly said it was the best deal, but the reality is it's the wrong deal for this country. It threatens our national security. This is sovereign territory. We are giving away and paying for the privilege, and we're paying a hell of a lot of money, £35 billion, to give away turf that we have control of. It's bad for our national security. It's bad for our nation's finances. It's a lose-lose for this country.
OK, well, Matt Vickers, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, right to correct him on the Kool-Aid. Other sachet-based drinks are available, of course, despite Kool-Aid being delicious.
That's so true. Now then, this is one of those subjects that I never thought that I'd be talking about.
Well, I've been skipping over it all day.
You have been. You've been making me talk about it. This is an issue at the Winter Olympics. I think they're actually dubbing it Crotchgate. It's about crotch enhancements, but also banned helmets. It's the talk of the town.
It is.
Ahead of the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. You may think, what on earth are they talking about? Stay tuned and we'll explain.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News. We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News. Is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
The Winter Olympics gets underway properly in a few hours' time. The opening ceremony will have performances by Mariah Carey and Andrea Bocelli, which will signal the games starting properly.
Yeah, and while athletes will be centre stage for the next 2 weeks, we're looking forward to that.
Yep.
In the meantime, there have been a couple of controversies that have attracted a bit of attention in the lead-up.
They certainly have. Let's bring in our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who's in Milan for the games. You lucky things. I bet you're there with your producer, Tyrone, as well. Hi, both to you guys. Get all the good jobs. Talk to us about crotch enhancement.
This is one of the bizarre episodes you can get in the build-up to the games, and often people are looking around for a story, what can get people interested, and we were all heading into a World Anti-Doping Agency press conference yesterday, and there's a particular topic on the mind. Now, it emerged in Germany, allegations that ski jumpers are injecting hydrochloric acid, maybe, into their genitalia, which is all about not enhancing performances, perhaps in the athlete's village with bedroom gymnastics, but about being able to make their skin suits bigger, to increase the surface area, to basically give themselves a greater aerodynamics, bigger lift in the air. Now, there's nothing substantiated in this, but anything that might give competitive advantage is seen to be explored. Now, the World Anti-Doping Agency is usually about substances that might directly increase your performance from those being put into your body, not necessarily about the suits themselves, but they did actually engage with the question. They said they would look into it if there was something found to be increasing performance, but they certainly gave legs to this story, which has really captivated things ahead of the Olympics.
A bit of a science nerd. I think it's a hydrochloric acid. It's definitely not that. It's hyaluronic acid, I think, is the thing that they're injected. Hydrochloric would be quite damaging if you were injecting that into any body part.
Thank you for the science note. That's good to know. But in the meantime, of course, the opening ceremony tonight, which kicks off what should be really exciting games.
Yeah, and it is an unusual games. The most spread out winter Olympics ever across a footprint of 10,000 miles. So I'm just in one part of it in Milan, and this is where the main part of the opening ceremony is going to be at the San Siro, home of Inter and AC Milan. Mariah Carey, Andrea Bocelli will be performing. Surprises as well, we don't know about. That's what keeps you gripped to watch an opening ceremony, what unexpected moments could come up. But it's so spread out, it means there'll be a second part of it in Cortina, the mountain resort about 4 or 5 hours by road away. So it means there are 2 Team GB flag bearers. So in Cortina is Brad Hall, who's Britain's most successful bobsleigh pilot. Then here in Milan, the other flag bearer will be Lila Fear, the first ice dancer to be a GB flag bearer since Christopher Dean in 1984. There is already some hope of Team GB success maybe on the cards in the curling. The mixed team has started with 3 wins. You have to have some of that competition early on. Things sort of building up nicely, maybe to Monday. There's some hope in snow sports as well. A big day potentially. Now, for GB, in Beijing, only 2 medals were won, including gold in curling. There were 5 each of the previous 2 games, so there really is a hope to improve on Beijing, with the aspiration maybe a record 8 winter gold and 8 winter medals for GB to justify that £25 million in funding.
Yeah, it is.
All right,
yeah.
Rob, enjoy the rest of the games, and we'll speak again real soon.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about the sport.
Indeed.
Good stuff. Thanks, Rob.
All right. Well, there's been some major news on statins.
Yeah, it's good news.
It is indeed. A review finds that the cholesterol-busting drugs used by millions are far safer than previously thought. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes' time. just an update to bring you on the shooting in Moscow this morning of Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev. He was shot in what the Kremlin is describing it as an attempted assassination. President Putin, we are told, is being briefed on the situation. That individual, the Lieutenant General, remains in hospital. He's a senior figure within the Russian spy service, the GRU, was responsible for Russian special forces, the Spetsnaz, and he, alongside one of his colleagues, was also sanctioned by the UK for their role in the Salisbury poisoning of Sergei Skripal back in 2019. As I say, Putin is being briefed on that assassination attempt, and they're looking into what may well have taken place.
Yeah, they're saying that the special services are currently doing their job, as they call it, investigating that. The Kremlin's also made a few comments this morning about the talks in Abu Dhabi with Ukraine that have been going on. They've described them as complex but constructive, and they've signalled that those talks will indeed continue.
Absolutely. And just a quick note on the situation between the Americans and Iran. The Kremlin have had something to say about that as well. There are talks in Oman today.
That's right.
Between the US and Iran, scheduled for just one day. The Kremlin has urged restraint on all sides. Of course,
That's
there's
right.
fear that there might be a US strike on Iran.
Yeah, they are welcoming the talks, but they're hoping for de-escalation is their message ahead of those talks.
All right, well, let's bring you that positive news that we promised
Yes.
when we went to break about people who are dealing with high cholesterol. As a landmark study has found, statins are far safer than previously thought.
Yeah, that's right. Should we get some details? Molly's here. Hi, Molly. So
Molly.
it's always nice to get a little bit of good news, so tell us more.
Happy Friday. Yeah, so this matters because millions of people take statins. They're one of the most commonly prescribed drugs in the UK. They're used, as we know, to bring down cholesterol levels, to help prevent heart attacks and strokes, and also cardiovascular disease, which actually is one of the most common causes of death, counts for around a quarter of deaths in the UK. So that's why it matters, studies looking into this drug. And for a long time, there have been warnings, though, about the possible side effects of taking statins. And now this major study published in The Lancet, so significant amount of research with kind of heft behind it, has basically shown that it's the view of these scientists that they're much actually safer to take than previously thought, and that they've actually suggested that going forward, the advice and of side effects on the kind of box when you open it, when you get prescribed it, should change to reflect these findings. It was a trial of 120,000 people, and what they did is they compared the use of statins versus a kind of dummy drug, a placebo drug, and the patients in the trial didn't know which one they were taking, so that helped them sort of evaluate the differences. And it found that statins aren't actually the cause of the majority of the possible side effects that have been warned about for a long time. So some of the more serious ones, things like memory loss, depression, problems with sleep and weight gain, which are all listed as possible side effects. Only 4 out of 66 were found to have any association with actually taking statins, and that was things like urine changes and tissue swelling, but that showed up in only a very small proportion of patients that were trialled. And then those people, it was followed up for 4.5 years, so quite a long time to sort of assess what was going on with the effects. So I guess the message from the scientists now was that their research is showing that for most people, the benefits actually outweigh the risk. And that matters because, as I say, for a long time, people have been potentially scared about taking statins, might be thinking, I won't take them because of those side effects, but many of the side effects are not showing up.
Yeah, pretty good news.
Yeah,
Yeah, great. And as you say, millions of people are on them,
Yeah.
so they'll be very relieved about that, won't they?
Appreciate it, Molly. Thank you for being with us. Now, it was raining in central London yesterday.
It's raining everywhere, I think.
It's been raining for like a month, hasn't it?
Since
at least.
As long as I can remember.
Well, the rain certainly set the mood for the premiere last night of Wuthering Heights as the stars assembled on the red carpet.
Yeah, Margot Robbie, who plays Catherine Earnshaw, has dazzled on the red carpet in Victorian Gothic fashion alongside Jacob Elordi, who plays Heathcliff. And Emerald Fennell is the latest director to venture into this adaptation of Emily Bronte's classic novel. Fans are pretty excited, especially after the success of her last project, Saltburn. So let's hear what the stars had to say about working with that director.
She always thinks of the audience when she makes a film and writes a script, like what is going to give the maximum, emotional impact for the audience? How is it going to be most entertaining for them? As opposed to maybe letting it be a more cerebral kind of exploration. It's more of like something coming from your gut, your heart.
Em is an actor herself, so she knows what it's like to be going into a performance. So she gives us this 2-week rehearsal space, which you don't often get on movies. So, Emerald builds that as a director.
And what's she like as a director? Because seeing this, the third film now, every time it's such a unique production, every single one that she creates. What's it like as an actor having someone like her being at the helm of a film like this?
I don't use this word lightly, but I find her a genius.
Why?
Watch the movie.
Oh, you've got to watch the movie then. Debbie Ringard has joined us. As Jacob Elordi gives you directions to what to do to work out why Emerald Fennell is such a genius. Why is that? Why does he describe her as a genius?
Well, I think it's just she takes a very unique take on everything that she does. She had Promising Young Woman. That was her first feature debut, and that was the one that she got original screenplay, won an Oscar, won a BAFTA for that, following then up with Saltburn, which had everybody talking about bathwater and Barry Keoghan. And now we've got this one, Wuthering Heights, which is being tipped as a very, very erotic version of Wuthering Heights. Now, we've seen the adaptations of this over the years. We've seen a lot of different versions of Heathcliff, Ralph Fiennes, we've got Laurence Olivier, as well as Tom Hardy. So it is kind of a wait and see to see what Jacob Elordi does with this one.
Well, yeah, and it's going to give the traditionalists a sort of have them clutching at their pearls, won't it? Because, you know, a lot of people would have read the book and feel a real attachment to it and kind of think that they want it done in the traditional way that it's written. So it might cause a bit of a stir.
It is true, actually. And actually, there was a little bit of backlash as well about Jacob Elordi's casting a year or so ago. And that was because in the books, if you actually read through the descriptions of who Heathcliff is, he's actually referred to as possibly somebody who's South Asian rather than a white actor. And now, like that, there's only ever been one actor who isn't white who has played Heathcliff, and that's James Housen in 2011. So seeing that Jacob Elordi is now back again in this spot, it's kind of raising those questions online. Beauty of social media as well is that fans get to actually speak their mind before the film comes out.
Well, and spread the word about it, because it's already had a lot of publicity, hasn't it, before it's even opened?
Yeah, massively so.
I think the word used, and it might be offensive, is swarthy to describe Heathcliff in the book, which obviously Jacob Elordi is from New Zealand, so perhaps doesn't have that characterisation. Is that going to be a problem for them?
We have to wait and see, really, about it, because, of course, like there was other description of him as a Lascar, as a South Asian sailor as well in this thing, and as well, when we looked at the LA premiere for this, Emerald Fennell actually spoke about that, and she said that the reason why she did it the way she has chosen this casting is it's how she envisioned the story, and that it's a little bit, it's her version, it's her iteration of Wuthering Heights.
Okay.
And this time of year is, I mean, it's probably appropriate because the weather's awful, that it's a great time to go to the cinema, isn't it? Because so many of the great films come out ahead of awards season. Anything else that we should have on our radar at the moment that's coming out in the next few weeks or has just come out?
Well, this one is coming out on the 13th of February, so perfect for Valentine's Day. But if you're not into the romantic side of going into the cinema, there's also Crime 101, which is a new thriller.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very romantic.
Exactly, it doesn't, but it's a good film. It's Chris Hemsworth as well as Mark Ruffalo and Halle Berry. And it's all about a person who steals all along the highway 101 in LA.
Interesting. Sentimental Value is well nominated for the BAFTAs and the Oscars. You were meant to go and see it. Did you manage to catch it?
I'm going to see it next week.
Okay.
But I really want to see it. This is a Norwegian film, isn't it?
Yes, that's one of Stellan Skarsgård and Elle Fanning.
And I heard it kind of got a 19-minute standing ovation, which sounds extraordinary.
This is the part that I'm always...
How many minutes?
19!
It's the part that I always question, because no matter how good a film, I'm not standing and clapping for 19 minutes.
There's no chance.
I don't care.
there's no... Your hands will be getting tired, your legs will be getting sore. I mean, what's going on?
Spill your popcorn.
Of course.
Is there one that you would give a 19-minute standing ovation to?
They would... No, I mean, maybe no. There's nothing... I don't think that I might give a 2 minutes... standing ovation to Sinners. I thought that was a really good picture, which is nominated this year.
I mean, that's doing so well.
Did you watch that? I told you to watch that last week as well.
I thought I might be a bit scared.
It's a brilliant film, and it's got that Irish moment as well.
It
you know,
has,
the moment I saw that, my Irish dancing came back into me. I was like, great.
Now I'm going to have to watch it so I know what you're talking about.
No, Sentimental Value is meant to be really, really good. A sort of a heartfelt sort of family drama that I know we are going to try and get to see eventually. I know.
Yeah, and so have you got a little tip for what you think will do well? Obviously, we know what the nominations are for most of the major awards now, and as well as Sinners, we've got One Battle After Another, Hamnet. They're all doing well, aren't they? What's your tip for which film might come?
I do think the One Battle After Another is going to be the one that leads the way, as much as I would love Sinners to win so many of the awards. I think that the ones that they're competing one battle after another with, one battle after another, are going to top the poll. But we do have original screenplay. If that doesn't go to Ryan Coogler, I'll be heartbroken.
Right. Oh, OK. Yeah. Well, we'll wait and see. We'll see you after all the awards.
We will. Good to see you, then. Thank you very much.
I'm going to have to see Sinners now, aren't I?
You are. I told you watch it last weekend.
Is it scary? Not scary.
It's not scary. No, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Nothing to be scared of, he says.
Right. He said don't watch it late at night. Anyway, we've got sport coming up. That's not scary at all. Jackie will be back in just a moment.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest 'Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them. Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do. Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island. The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe.
Sky News, get the full story first. Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound. Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out. The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here. In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Jackie is back to talk all things sport. And we spoke to Rob Harris in Milan ahead of the Winter Olympics starting, and he dealt with all the controversies, which were eyebrow-raising. So we can talk about the sport.
Yeah, I think ski jumping suits, we've done that now. But I think what would be nice to say when Team GB go out there for the opening ceremony tonight, they're going to this Olympics with some really proper, meaty medal hopes. I mean, they've targeted between 4 and 8 medals of whatever colour. But you have to say some some of the athletes go out there as really red-hot favourites, like Bruce Mowat in curling, like, you know, Zoe Atkin, who's just won a World Cup gold. We've got Matt Weston on skeleton. Absolutely has dominated the world this year in skeleton, with Marcus Wyatt, you know, a close second. So they have like 7 World Cups. We're just looking at curling right now, but we'll come back to that. Matt Weston and Marcus Wyatt, they have 7 World Cups. Between them, they've won all of them. So it would be really extraordinary if they didn't pick up some medal from that event, for example. And Mia Brooks in snowboard again, a recent gold medal winner on the world stage. So there's actually loads of opportunity out there because their funding now is so good, and you actually can't interview these athletes a lot of the time because they're in the mountains all the time. So they're just never here.
And you say that their hope is 4 to 8 medals, and it doesn't sound like a lot when you think of the Summer Olympics, but actually their previous best is 5, isn't it? So
yes, and they've done that twice.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, 2014, 2018. We should mention that we saw a little a sneak peek of it there, but Bruce Mowat and Jen Dodds are playing in the mixed curling right now. In fact, they've already played 3 matches. They've won 3 matches. They're playing Sweden as we speak. They got off to a flying start this morning and went 4-0 up, but it's been pared back to 4-2. They have 8 ends in these mixed curling matches. They play every team out there in a round-robin format, and they will go through to a semi-final. But they're already, you know, in quite a good position, having got, you know, 3 victories under their belts. I don't know.
Favourites as well.
Yes, among the favourites. I think mixed is more difficult, and also don't forget, with all of these sports, the jeopardy is extraordinary. I mean, 1 centimetre curl, slightly not where you want it, it's all over. You know, same with, you know, with skiing and ski jumping and all the rest of it. You know, an edge the wrong way, and that's
what makes it so exciting to watch.
I mean, you just ice and sport. It's just dangerous. It's just dangerous. Speaking of dangerous, the conditions last night in France pretty horrible. But it was a horrible match for Ireland as well to start with in the Six Nations. It was difficult. They knew it was going to be difficult, even though Ireland have won, you know, 2 of the last 3. France won last time. France won before that. Very much have dominated this competition, both those teams. That is a tough one to start with, but France were extraordinary last night, really extraordinary. We can have a look at a couple of the tries because Louis Biarré was the star man for France, the 22-year-old, opening the scoring on 12 minutes with a piece of individual brilliance and followed it up with another on 47 minutes. France racing into a 29-0 lead, totally dominating for the first 50 minutes of this match. Ireland not getting a look in. There was a fight back from the Irish in the second half, 2 tries of their own, but France wrapping things up in the end with another try with a real flourish and really sending a good message, I think, out to everybody else. You know, look what we can do. Look what we can do.
This is what you've got to be.
When we put the hammer down. You know, really, really difficult to beat. And I suppose England have a chance, having done it last season in the Six Nations. They have a chance to do something again. But that match is going to be quite intriguing. But lots for the Irish, you know, to pick over. We should also mention Leicester as well. Leicester fans, you know, unhappy this morning because they've been dragged into a relegation fight in the Championship, and which is really hard to believe when you think they were so recently in the Premier League and barely
that long ago they won.
Yeah, barely 10 years since they won the Premier League title against all the odds. They have been docked 6 points by an independent EFL committee. It could have been a lot more. They have broken the financial rules, broken them by almost £20 million. There is a certain amount you can't lose, and they lost that amount plus almost 20 million more. It could have been a lot more. I guess they'll appeal it.
Right.
They said they're going to think about what to do next. I guess they will appeal it, but...
I made the point to you last time.
At least they know where they stand.
They get really upset, though, the fans, don't they, when they lose points in season. Forest lost points in season, Everton lost points in season.
Yeah, but they don't have a manager right now, Leicester, and at least, you know, OK, this is where we are, this is where we try and build from. Right. At least they know. At least it's not a big... It was kind of hanging over them, and now they know where they stand. And I tell you... Ben Stokes knows where he stands.
Yes.
Let's bring those pictures up again.
reached for the Savlon. Poor old Ben Stokes got hit in the eye with a cricket ball, posted on his social media yesterday, "You should see the state of the cricket ball." He wasn't bowling, he wasn't batting, he was just sort of standing around. Somebody else was bowling and he got smacked in the face.
So is this a training session or something?
Yes, on a training session.
I mean, that looks like he's fractured his eye socket. I mean, that cricket ball is very hard. Anyone who's played the game.
Yeah, he'll be okay. I mean, he's a toughie. You know, coming back from Australia, you know, nursing a few sort of niggles as well. So at least he is back practicing. So I suppose that
something.
Looking on the bright side.
I love your diagnosis there, Dr. Melbourne.
Diagnose exactly what's happened to him.
I've got to say, in the chatting about the Olympics, just while we've quickly got time, Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson in the ice stance have got a real medal chance as well. And I noticed that Rob said that Lila was carrying the flag tonight, but third in the world, third in the Euros. It would be the first ice skating medal since Torvill and Dean if they could do it.
Nottingham's finest, Torvill and Dean, excellent.
If they could do it, yeah.
They can do it.
You're probably too young to remember that.
1984, no, I remember it. I remember
Bolero.
it. Exactly,
Yeah.
It's a classic. All right.
We could sing it as we go off air.
Won't do that. We'll see you tomorrow, though.
Yeah. See you.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.